of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. It's a Friday edition of Running Point. I am Anthony Hartwig, and as always, I am joined by Ty Bartel. There you are, buddy. How are we doing today?
Doing real well on a Friday edition of Running Point. First week under the belt for us, huh?
Well, not yet. Let's get through this 3 hours, then we can celebrate. Brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. Again, we welcome you to Running Point today. You can comment on any platform you are watching on: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Does not matter. Comments are live. The MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline also live, 330-886-0813. Got a fun show planned for you today because we are previewing the MVAC Scarlet tier. Took care of the gray tier yesterday, but we have Coach Matt Seidel of the Sebring Trojans joining us to not only preview his team, but help us preview some other teams inside his own conference. So that'll be fun. We also have Mike Klockner, head coach of McDonald Volleyball, coming on at 1 o'clock, and Mackenzie Firth, the new head coach of the United Eagles volleyball team, coming on at 1:30. Both those coaches taking over the program in their first year at the helm. Excited to talk to them at 1 and 1:30. And Ty, as we get ready to welcome in Coach Seidel, let's kind of open and give him a little bit of an intro with the Sebring Trojans.
Yeah, well, looking at the Trojans last year under Coach Seidel, team that averaged 20 points per game, just like everyone else in the division, over 20 points per game, everyone in that Scarlet tier. So very good scoring offenses in the Scarlet tier of the MVAC. Looking at Sebring as a whole, what we have on them, the guys that they lost, a couple of seniors that were lost. Matt Bird, the offensive lineman. We all know him for his big basketball shot as well. But Matt Bird, the offensive lineman. Frankie Lazoya, another offensive lineman. Cody Horning, wide receiver. Dylan Johnson, quarterback. Those are the guys that they lost, but a lot of returnees for a very young Trojan team. As Coach Seidel, when he comes on, will happily tell you guys like Dustin Black on the offensive line, Joel Seals on the offensive line, Melvin Cruz, the wide receiver, Elijah Frederick, the running back for them, Noah Frederick. It starts and ends with the Fredericks, and Coach Seidel knows that with his running attack, it's all about offensive line and all about the running game, and he's got a couple of good backs and a very good offensive line that is returning mostly from last year.
Well, here we are. He pops in, Coach Seidel. We just kind of gave you a quick preview of a recap of last season. What kind of things do you build on from what you had last year?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've talked about constantly is improving from year to year, and just watching those young guys kind of develop and form bonds with each other, and get ready to take that out onto the football field. We're real excited about obviously having the twins back for another season. A couple guys that went over 1,000 yards rushing each last year. They counted for 20 some touchdowns for us. So they were a big part of our offense, but also welcoming in some new guys, some new faces.
Coach, talk to me a little bit about last year, comparing it to this year. How are practices different? Talk to me about the benefits you have of this year not having the COVID restrictions.
Yeah, I don't like to get too into the weeds of it, but there were things that took us away from normal practice time last year when it came to social distancing all the temperature checks and everything like that we had to do, that it's felt a lot more like normal football season this year. We've had the ability to just kind of get right out onto the road and kind of hit the ground running with some of these new faces that we're trying to bring along to get ready to go for a lengthy run here, what we're hoping for.
When you look at the prospects that this year bring, and like you said, the returners that you're bringing back this year, what are realistic expectations that fans should have of this football team?
Yeah, we talk all the time internally about we just want to take it 1 week at a time, but we've not been ashamed or shy about the fact that our goal as a team is, and it has been for all 3 of my seasons here, we want to make the playoffs for the first time in school history. And this is a group of guys that really believe that they could be the group to do it. We've got some things that obviously have to happen first, and we talk about just go out and win the day and the rest will take care of itself. But those are our team goals.
Talking and looking a little bit at your defense, certainly an area that can be improved upon from last year. What are some steps you're looking to do to improve that, and any sort of game plan changes or anything like that you're looking to change going into this season?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Ty. And, defense was one of the things that my coaching staff and I really sat down and looked at over the offseason. I've got a great defensive coordinator in Wade Smith, who, also spends a lot of time with offensive and defensive line guys. And we talked about, wanting to get faster as a team and just overall increase our team speed. So I have to tip my cap to our track coach, Kyle Billingsley, who took my guys on with some of his track guys, even the ones that, maybe don't run for him. And, he got together with them and he put together an off-season program, and we've seen our team speed increase. We were pretty quick last year. We're going to be very quick this year.
You guys run that triple option offense that I, as a Georgia Tech fan, know more about than most. But what is it about that offense that gives you guys an advantage every week? I know it's so hard to prepare for. You can't really practice for it if they're running it correctly. What leaned you towards that, and what kind of advantages does it bring you?
Yeah, so when I came on board as the head coach, Wade Smith and I and Jamie Regai and I, we had all kind of sat down, and we had all just come off of watching the state championship games. And one of the things that we noticed was the teams that were winning the state championship that particular year in Division 7, 6, 5, and 4 all seemed to run some variation of the triple option. And so what we decided to do was to implement some of those principles into some of the stuff that we already do. We've always had the power run game in there. We've always had, what we like to call the wham play, where we bring a slot receiver in motion and kick out the end. And it just made logical sense for us out of the pistol to be able to kind of do that. It's going to take on a little bit of a different look this year with split backs for most of the time. But we think that it gives us an advantage because you have to be incredibly disciplined if you're going to play against a triple option offense. Yeah,
and just to add on to that, like, how many coaches do you think that run the triple option watch the highest level of the Navies, the Armies, the college and the used to Georgia Tech, the college teams that they're used to run it so well? I mean, do you pick the brains of those coaches when you watch those games on film and say, oh, they're doing this with the triple option, it's a good idea?
Yeah, so if Georgia Tech or Army or Navy or any of the service academies, if their coaching staffs are at a clinic somewhere, I'm trying to get onto that clinic and just learn as much about some of the nuances that they can provide, that we can kind of take away and find some things that make a lot of sense for our offense too. There's not, we don't run it from under center like some of the traditional service academies will, but I was really interested a couple years ago when Navy decided to do theirs out of the pistol formation. It kind of mirrored exactly what we were hoping to accomplish. And so we were able to kind of pick some of those guys' brains and just talk ball with a few of their coaches, and get some ideas about, hey, this is the way that we run the midline read, and this is the way that we're reading on the end. Here's how we teach our undersized offensive linemen to block those guys in the SEC or the Big Ten or the Big East or whoever it might be.
I'm on the offensive line for the Sebring Trojans, Coach, and I ask you to show me a player that you want me to model myself after, whether it be professionally, high school, college ranks, whatever. What's a player you're naming and why?
Yeah, for this year's team, I think that the guy that I'm going to go to right away is Brady Whaley. Brady's a kid that he hasn't always had the fastest feet. He hasn't always had the strongest body frame to play the offensive line, but he shows up and he works his butt off. He's a smart kid. He's either a 3.8 or a 4.0 student in the classroom. He's not a real raw guy. He's never kind of an issue in the locker room or anything like that. He just shows up and works every day. And those are the kind of guys that you love along that offensive and defensive line.
What's the theme for this football team this year? I mean, you're strong on social media, and I'm sure you have kind of a theme every year that you try to bring to your guys. What's the theme this year for Sebring football?
Yeah, so our kind of tagline that we've been using this year is "For the Honor." It's a line right out of our fight song. And it just kind of embodies everything that we want this season to be about. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? Well, we're doing it for the honor of our program, for the honor of our district, for the honor of our community. And so that's kind of what we've been drilling home with our guys this year.
Coach, looking a little bit at your schedule, we already know the conference play of the Scarleteer as well as the non-conference games you have. If I have one ticket to go to any Sebring Trojans football game this year, which game are you pointing me to and why?
Oh, geez. I think week one's going to be really exciting. It's going to be a great atmosphere over there in Salem as we take on Latonia. This is going to be upwards of almost 80, 90 times that this game's been played, going back to the days that we were Tri-County rivals all the way back to 1932. So I think it's going to be an exciting atmosphere. Coach Julia always has his guys, ready to go for the opener. And we're hoping that we can kind of come together and gel and be ready to go over there to Salem and enjoy a great atmosphere and hopefully come home with a win.
With these previews, we always like to break down the team schedule. I don't know if you have yours right in front of you, Matt, but why don't you have the honor of running down your schedule, and maybe me and Ty will circle a couple games that we find interesting.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about Latonia already, and I do think Coach Julia always does a great job of having his guys ready. That's going to be an exciting game, and to have that on kind of a neutral site on a Friday night when Salem's got a game, I believe Thursday that week. I'm expecting a pretty decent sized crowd because both communities touch that community as well. Week 2, we go up to Spire Institute on Saturday, and this will be the first ever meeting for us with St. John's. I'm looking forward to seeing that Spire facility and just getting a chance to, open weeks 1 and 2 on turf and maybe, have a little bit different of a crowd up there, an hour and a half, 2 hours almost away. Could make for a really interesting situation. And then in week 3, we welcome in Matthews and Coach Bill Bourne, who's a legend in his own right. I'm looking forward. I haven't had the opportunity to meet Coach Bourne yet, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity to play against him, a guy that's been around the game for longer than I've been alive, honestly, and just looking forward to having that game. Then we open up league play with Waterloo. That was a great game last year. They've kind of implemented week 4 in our league as a trophy game week, and so they call it rivalry week. We do have a traveling trophy with Waterloo that currently it's at our place. 2 years ago, it was at their place. So we're looking for the tiebreaker game this year. And then we get into the rest of the heart of our league schedule. And I think that, there's really solid programs within the MVAC Scarlet Tier. And obviously that starts with Springfield, who luckily we don't face them until week 10. So we've got some time to prepare for Bo Brumgard and for Coach Guerrero and his staff and the good things that they've done over the past 2 years. And as a league, I think we're all very proud of the success that they've had. But, you think of programs like McDonald and even now with Mineral Ridge, who is really taking strides towards becoming one of the powers in the league. Western Reserve, Jackson Milton. Louisville's going to be an interesting game for everybody this year. I've heard their coach say multiple times that they're planning to air the ball out a bunch. They want to throw the ball 50 plus times a game. So, it's just a little bit of a difference when usually we're an 80-20 run pass league. That game you're going to have to prepare a little bit differently for. And obviously, Vinny Ballone's a really talented quarterback that can do some things that you've got to be ready to take care of.
Speaking on that game, Coach, that was actually the game that I circled for yours, and it was an interesting game because I liked the matchup. I liked the run style offense versus the obvious pass offense that Vinny Ballone's going to bring on this. Talk to me a little bit about the stylistically different offenses that we're going to see in this matchup, and stylistically the different defenses we can expect to see from both teams too.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and that's one of those games where the fact that we're multiple defensively comes into play. We've got the ability to drop into, 4 into coverage, 5 into coverage. We might even see 6 into coverage sometimes in that game. But it's just, it's a different mindset that you have to have going into that game because we're so geared up all the rest of the season on stop the run first, that you just kind of have to take a different approach towards it.
Yeah, and one of the games that I'm looking at, just because when two teams that love to run so much kind of square up with each other, it's always going to be a fun time. The McDonald game. I mean, McDonald is historically known for how much they love to run the ball. Talk about them and what it's going to be like going up against a game where it's all going to be about ball control and who can hold on to the ball the longest.
No, you're right. And, that's always a game that I've got circled on my schedule. McDonald obviously has perennially been a powerhouse in our league and in our conference. Coach Williams has done a tremendous job there for a lot of years. They had some key losses this year, but I think that that's really going to be a measuring stick game for us this year to see, how good could we potentially be. Coach always has his team ready to go. We're at their place this year. I believe that's week 5 that we're going to be over there. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. That might be one of the quickest games in the state this year too.
Talk to me too, Coach, a little bit about your team. Where you see strengths on defense. You have a lot of returners on both offense and defense. We did a little bit on the offense. Defensively, we know the Fredericks play both ways. Another guy, Ruzek, is another one. Justin Belt. Talk to me a little bit about the defense. What you expect from them having that year under their belt. A lot of them on a very young defensive staff.
No, you're right, and there were a lot of those guys that were coming into their first year last year, their first season of playing football, maybe since junior high or ever. And it was interesting to see the development that they made over the course of the season. I think that one of the real strengths of this team this year is going to be our team speed in the back end of the defense. I think, at the linebacker position, we're extremely quick, obviously with the ends on the out, or with the twins on the outside. And then throughout our secondary, we've just got guys that can really turn it on and burn. And so we're going to look to take advantage of that team speed.
Coach, that we definitely look forward to covering and Sebring and all the games on the schedule. And we hope that you guys make the playoffs too. And if you do, I think you're going to be used to traveling because like you said, week 2, you're going an hour and a half away. I mean, inevitable if you make the playoffs, you're going to have to travel at some point. Absolutely. So your team's going to be used to traveling.
Yeah, and it's a unique year for us too because we've got 6 road games this year. We're going to truly be some road warriors this year. And we've only got 4 home games this season. Obviously, when Southington had to make the decision that they were going to go to a league-only schedule and try and do it that way to get their numbers up, we had to give away one of our home games to be able to get a favorable matchup with the Ashtabula St. John team. And so we didn't mind traveling to have a better fit for a game.
All right, Coach, that was a great preview. And now you've been kind enough to say that you would stay to preview a couple of other teams in the MVAC. And we want to start with Springfield. And me and Ty both said we have to get Matt Seidel to talk a little bit about the Springfield Tigers. Obviously, everyone knows what they've been about the last 2 years. Ty, why don't you break down who they're returning and what they lost last year?
Well, let's look at their offense first. I mean, on offense that averaged over 40 points per game last season. That was third in the entire area. Returning 7 of those starters on that offense, too, and the biggest one of all being Bo Brungard at quarterback going into his senior year. Looking for big numbers again from Brungard, looking for him to top his previous years under Springfield and Coach Guerrero's offense. Aaron Groner, tight end for them, is a huge target as well. AJ Stallsmith is a great wide receiver. Guys they lost, though, as far as the Tigers offense, there was a few losses. Brady Brungard, Bo's brother, obviously, offensive lineman, is gone. Lucas Yema, a wide receiver that was very talented for them, is gone. Clay Medvick, also not there. Clayton Nesbitt, also another one that's missing. But the good thing about Springfield's offense, and I mean, Coach Seidel can comment on this one as well. Coach Guerrero has done a great job of just filling those positions and bringing the next man up mentality. And it seems like every single time they lose one of those seniors that was such a star the year before, a junior or a sophomore or the next year's senior is right there to step into that spot and fill those big shoes. And I mean, it's a culture of guys leading each other, it seems like, over there in Springfield with that offense.
Yeah, I think Ty's right. They've really just kind of built that culture of next man up kind of mentality. And, Coach Guerrero and his staff have done a tremendous job of kind of building that program and continuing on with some of the success that they had even before they got there. And then obviously, culminating in a couple of appearances in the state championship game these last 2 years. Brady Brumgard is a huge loss, not only as a person, but obviously physically he's a huge loss as well. That offensive line unit made things go for them last year, and it's going to be interesting to see how they replace some of those names with some guys that may be a little bit different of a skill set than some of the guys that were seniors last year. I have no doubt that Coach Guerrero is going to be able to figure it out and that they'll be successful again this year. Obviously, it all starts with Bo in the backfield. And when you've got a kid like that with a high football IQ and also great football ability, he's always going to be dangerous.
And this is going to be scary for you and everyone in the NVAC to answer, but how can Springfield get better? I mean, you always have to get better every year. Well, I mean, other than winning a state championship, what can they do to get better this year? What things can they even improve on?
Yeah, I think it's all kind of in the details. And if you look at, some of the little things that they do, I know that they're probably talking to their guys about, focusing on things like footwork and making sure that routes are crisp, making sure that their assignment sound in all 11 positions. The other place that I think that they're going to have to figure out pretty quick here is, Clay Medvick was a dangerous weapon for them for 4 years. A kid that even in the kickoff game, he could just kind of place the ball wherever he wanted. They did a really nice job with him of kind of directionally kicking and trying to pinion that coffin corner of the end zone down there and still make you field the ball and come out and obviously take it from the 1 or the 2 yard line and then corralling people in there. That was one of the things that I noticed about their last couple of playoff runs that was so successful for them was their special teams were so crisp. So to find a replacement for Clay Medvick is going to be a big deal real fast.
Looking too on their defense, Coach. I mean, everyone talks about this high-scoring offense, but this defense of Springfield is one of the best in the area as well. And we talked about the returnees, and I mean, we know Bo, and there's a couple of Bo's on that defense that are really ones to watch out for. Bo Brungard, totaling 3 interceptions last year, and then of course Bo Snyder, a big linebacker and a tackling machine for Springfield's defense. There's some great returnees. 8 starters are returning, and a lot of those guys play two-way on offense and defense. And like you said, Coach, a lot of high football IQ all around this team, and you could tell that by these two-way players just surrounding everywhere.
Yeah, you mentioned Bo Snyder, and that's a big, strong, physical linebacker who's going to hit you in the mouth every single time that you've got the ball. I think the thing that makes them so good on defense is the fact that they're so assignment sound. You very rarely see them blow a coverage or miss an assignment or lose their gap control on defense. And that if you can do that and you can be very gap sound and assignment sound, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Ty, let's break down their schedule a little bit and see what the Springfield Tigers have in store, not just for their conference, but their non-conference games as well.
We'll look at their first 3 non-conference games because that's just how they set it up with it. 3 non-conference followed by 7 conference. So the 3 non-conference games for Springfield to start out: home versus South Range, at Brookfield, and at Geneva. And I mean, they didn't shy away from competition, especially those first 2 weeks. South Range and Brookfield, 1-2 punch right there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they fare through those first 3 games. Obviously, some things to sort out, but I think that, those are great tests. And obviously, they're scheduling games like that with an eye towards a long playoff run again, as they've kind of carved up our league here for the last couple of years. I think there's a couple of teams that are taking some steps to kind of get a little bit closer, but I do still think that they're the class of the league.
Man, when you look at that South Range game, they're so evenly matched. Everyone was clamoring for that matchup last year. This year, I mean, I think the one glaring difference is Springfield has their quarterback set, and right now, South Range still trying to look for who they're going to replace Michael Patron with. That could be a big key in week 1 when South Range will be starting a new quarterback and Springfield will be having Bo Brungard, locked in.
Yeah, it's always difficult, too, when you're going up against a guy like Coach Yeagley, because there's just such a wealth of football knowledge there that he's going to have his team ready to go. His guys are going to be prepared. And he's done such a great job over the years of assembling a staff and putting together a program that, is really cohesive from the ground up.
When you talk about Springfield's conference schedule and some of the teams that might have a chance to shock the world, I look at last year's Western Reserve game, and even though Reserve didn't score with the ball, they held the ball for a long time in that first half. Definitely a team that's able to control the ball for a long time, along with McDonald. I look at one of those teams. The ball control teams are going to be one of the teams that might have the best chance to knock them off. Don't you think, Coach?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. They're so dangerous offensively, and they can score, in the blink of an eye if they want to, that you're going to have to slow the game down and play that ball control style against them. And so you're right. I look at teams like Western Reserve and even Mineral Ridge as a team that I think, if they can figure out some of the things that they're working on with their offensive line unit, they could be a team that presents a little bit of a challenge for a Springfield team. I know that that's an early game in the season, and so you're going to have to figure those things out really early on and be ready to go.
Ty, how does Springfield's conference schedule shake out?
Looking at their conference schedule, opens up September 10th at Lowville, 17th home versus Mineral Ridge, September 24th at McDonald, October 1st home versus Waterloo, October 8th home versus Western Reserve, 15th home versus Jackson Milton, and then 22nd at Coach Seidel's own Sebring. And looking at this conference schedule, I highlighted Lowville earlier too with Sebring, but I want to highlight them again. I mean, we talked a little bit about those McDonald and that Western Reserve game. Lowville's interesting to me because it's coming right off of a South Range, Brookfield, and Geneva non-conference schedule. So you're already going through a gauntlet of 3 games. Another interesting thing is, and what Coach has said, and kind of as what it looks to be, is they're going to be throwing the ball a lot this year. And that's going to be interesting with a lot of two-way players that are going to be on Springfield, going to have to be dropping back into coverage and probably going to have to be keeping up with guys a lot on defensive pass coverage. So when you look at guys like Bo Brungard that are playing defensive back and have to come back in on quarterback, yeah, we know they're athletes, but we also know fatigue does play a part in a game at some point. And if they're airing it out a lot, forcing these guys to drop back, fatigue's going to play a part at some point in this game.
Yeah, I think the key to that game is going to be the line play. And obviously, no shocker, Coach Seidel loves the line. But I do think that, if Springfield can get a good pass rush, and it's so important when you're playing against Vinny Blown that you keep him inside of the pocket, because once he gets outside, there's so many things that he can do, either running the ball or throwing the ball on the run. You've got to have that contained there. So that's one of the things that I look for to be a key in that game.
And here's a question from Chris Sigler. I'll just send this right to Coach, because you're going to be one of the teams that's going to have to try to, get your team prepared to mentally prepared to pull that upset off. What kind of things do you tell a team when they're coming up against a powerhouse like Springfield to keep them confident and make them believe in themselves a little bit?
Yeah, I think the good news, Chris, is most of the time, kids today, they don't really follow all the press clippings. They don't really, follow along as much as maybe we did when we were kids. or at least the kids in my program don't. And so they really just look at it as another game on the schedule. And, we do talk about, hey, that's one of the best teams we've seen on film so far. Let's really, grit down, bear down, and prepare this week. And I think that it's an opportunity for coaches to say to their guys, this is the one where we're going to have to be unbelievably assignment sound in everything we do, because they've got guys that can make you pay at every level of their defense and every level of their offense.
You brought them up a little bit earlier. I think another sneaky team on Springfield's schedule is going to be the other orange and black team in the conference in Mineral Ridge. I wouldn't sleep on the Rams if I were teams in the MVAC.
Yeah, Coach Shaner's done a tremendous job since getting there, and Coach Shaner and I are personal friends outside of here and outside of football. But I'm a real big admirer of not only what he's doing with their football program, but what their entire school district is doing. Putting in a turf field this year, opening up a field house in the coming years. I just think that that's a district and a community that's really got it together athletically. They're finding some of the right things to do, and they're taking some big steps and some strides. I can remember when, I was first starting to coach 16, 17 years ago, that, Mineral Ridge was one of those games that you looked at as, okay, we're going to show up and we could probably win that game or be close in that game. And now you have to prepare tremendously for that team because there's so many things that they can do.
Getting to 3 state championships is so hard. I don't think people understand how tough that is. What do you think Springfield would like have to have happen for that to culminate? Do you think they're really set and all the pieces are there still?
Yeah, I think that, I think that there's pieces there, but I think all of us are questioning some of those things still right now. As we've kind of got pads on this week and we're starting to see what some guys can do and maybe where the work in the weight room in the off season has paid off. I think, obviously this weekend with scrimmages starting, you're going to answer a lot of those questions. And, I would trust Coach Guerrero to kind of have those things figured out as they head into the football season. But I think that he would probably tell you too, a lot's going to depend on how well that offensive and defensive line can gel together, obviously with some key losses there.
Yeah, I think the pieces are there, but like every season, you just have to wait and see how it plays out. Nothing is guaranteed because the pieces are there.
Sure,
So
you've got to be good and you've got to get a little bit lucky too sometimes.
A little bit of luck, in every championship run. We'll take a quick timeout on the other end, and we'll be back with Coach Seidel to preview a couple of more MVAC teams. Don't go anywhere on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
New things happen all day. Some are good, some not so good. In today's complicated world, while you're busy working, playing, and living life, we're busy helping you make sense of the day's news. And there's only one place where it comes together with clarity, context, and accountability. It's 21 News at 6 with me, Madison Tromler, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 6. It's what the day's news really means to you.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Hi, this is Jim Myers with Myers Family Insurance, your local Medicare and retirement resource. We're excited to have sports back. Whether you're on the field or cheering from the stands, sports unifies communities and brings hope for the future. We're all one team working together. At Myers Family Insurance, we know the importance of a great team.
Our team continues to grow to help you with your Medicare and retirement needs.
The annual election period is October 15th through December 7th. Now's the time to make sure your plan continues to meet your needs for the upcoming year.
Call today.
Hi, I'm Colin Chupa. And I'm Kelsey Clem from K Squared Marketing. Our boutique marketing firm specializes in media planning and buying, public relations, event marketing strategies, and strategic sponsorships. We can integrate our services with your existing game plan, or we can be your entire marketing team. Your goals, our game plan. Let's win together. Call K-Squared Marketing at 330-623-2730 or visit ksquared.marketing to learn more.
Welcome back inside the Friday edition of Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. We are joined by Matt Seidel, head coach of the Sebring Trojans football team, as we preview the first half of the MVAC Scarlet Tier, and we venture from Springfield down to Western Reserve, and the Blue Devils looking to kind of bounce back after a season that probably wasn't up to their standard last year. Ty, who do the Blue Devils bring back, and who are they going to have to replace?
Yeah, 6-4 is considered bad seasons over there in Western Reserve. That's how successful this team has been. It's a team that was actually pretty solid on offense, averaging just over 27 points per game, a little over 300 yards. Guys that are going to be returning, and first and foremost, is David Altier, and he's going to be the dynamic running back of Western Reserve. He started coming into his own, especially towards the end of the last season. I expect with a 10-game season ahead of him, and hopefully a full 10-game season under his belt, he's going to have a monster year, as well as guys like David Ashburn at wide receiver, Dean Coleman on offensive line, Adam Wise on offensive line, just good solid seniors to build a program and an offense around, and really good that you can insert pretty much a decent amount of quarterbacks in there, and they can find success within a system like that with solid seniors all around them. And just looking all around at their offense, guys that could also, or guys that have been lost, they lost Russ Adair on running back, CJ Berlin-Bates offensive line, Nick Cavalas on quarterback, Alex Mayorga wide receiver. So, I mean, a couple of guys that are lost, but I mean, really, most of this team is returning, and a lot of young guys on this team last year that are going to have another year under their belt, but really kind of flying under the radar right now, and I think that's what Western Reserve likes.
Yeah, and you can't talk about Western Reserve without talking about David Altier. And, Coach, you've coached against him. He's probably gets a lot of attention on the scouting report when you're playing Western Reserve. Talk about what makes him so special and what makes him one of the highlight players in the whole conference.
Yeah, I think the way that he just kind of sees the field is one of the things that makes him most dangerous. He's kind of a guy that can attack you multiple different ways. He's worked really hard in the weight room to be able to have some of that power as a running back. But he's also got that speed on the edge too, where if he can get just outside of that defensive end, you're going to have a long day chasing him down the field. I think everybody in the league is probably a little relieved not to see CJ Berlin-Bates on the offensive line again this year because, first of all, just a tremendously huge human being. And second of all, just a heck of a football player. So it's going to be interesting to see how Coach Lude approaches, replacing him and dealing with maybe a little smaller offensive line than what the Western Reserve community has been used to having these last few years.
And with a team that's so used to dominating on the ground game, that offensive line is going to be, leaned on a lot.
No, you're right. And I think it's important to note, too, that Coach Lude comes over from being on Coach Johnson's staff at Salem. And so we started to notice that we were seeing some of those Salem wrinkles into the Western Reserve playbook last year.
Looking, too, at this defense of Western Reserve, it was also a defense that wasn't bad. 29th in the area, was ranked, allowed just under 24 per game. Returnees, of course, David Altier is a two-way player, plays defensive back. So does David Ashburn. Brogan Beery, junior linebacker, is a guy to watch for, as well as Caleb Durig, senior linebacker for them that has great size and great tackling ability as well. Guys, of course, that they lost. Alex Mayorga was a linebacker that played both ways. Brock Miller, defensive back, Mayorga was a defensive back, played both ways. Brock Miller was also a defensive back. Seth Phillips, defensive line that they lost. So a couple pieces on defense, but like I said, this is a team that's very young, and they're kind of going more linebacker heavy, it seems like, with the seniors outside of Altier and Ashburn, which they're going to have in the backfield, which are both going to be very, very good in that secondary defensive backfield. But now looking at the linebackers, they have some more size there. They have some more experience. This is going to be a very good second line of defense and very good tacklers on that linebacker squad.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first things that you always talk about when you talk about this Western Reserve program over the last couple, 5-10 years. What you've always seen out of them traditionally has been extremely good linebacker play. And obviously, Coach Hake did a great job with that. And I think that it's something that Coach Blute has wanted to continue on there. You see those big physical linebackers that can really move well and fill gaps in a hurry.
I know this has nothing to do with their football, but Western Reserve is always looking fly on the football field. I must say, one of the best uniforms in the conference. I'm not going to take anything away from your Sebring Trojans; they look fly too. But Western Reserve, I just something about the white, blue, and red. It looks really slick.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think that they've done a good job over the past few years of kind of updating some of those uniform choices. And I know that, they're a community that's extremely proud of their football program. And so they're willing to come out and do some things. They've changed the logo in the middle of the field a little bit. And those are things that matter to kids.
Looking a little bit too at the schedule that they have non-conference wise, they open it up at Liberty August 20th, August 28th they're at Warren JFK, and then September 3rd home versus Brookfield. So touring a little bit of the gray tier of the MVAC, as well as adding Warren JFK to their non-conference schedule. So a very interesting first 3 games of the season for Western Reserve, and it's going to test them right out of the gates, especially that Brookfield matchup September 3rd, I think.
That's a tough slate. You got up-and-coming Liberty's team. You got JFK, everyone knows what they did last year. And then you got Brookfield, who's just going to beat you up and play you physical the whole night. Tough way to start the season, Coach.
Yeah, not only for them, but for Springfield as well. You look at kind of that meat grinder of an opening 3 games. And it becomes real obvious right away what they're trying to do, and that's get themselves battle tested so that when they roll into our league schedule, they can be prepared for that, and then obviously hope to make long postseason runs as well. I think it's going to be an interesting year for that. Over the last 2 seasons, Western Reserve, if I remember correctly, has run into Springfield early in the playoffs both years. So obviously they're trying to beef their schedule up in the non-conference to prepare for that kind of a matchup again. But with the move to 16 teams in the playoffs, that may be a later matchup than we're used to this year if they both make it there and all things happen correctly.
Opening up conference play, they start out September 10th at Jackson Milton, September 17th home versus Waterloo, September 24th home versus Mineral Ridge, October 1st at McDonald, October 8th at Springfield, October 15th home versus Sebring, and October 22nd at Lowville. And I mean, I think for anybody's sake, and anyone will go to tell you, that September 10th at Jackson Milton game is one that everyone will circle on the schedule immediately.
And that's the rivalry. Right. I mean, that's a traveling trophy, right?
You're right. And I think that Western Reserve community's got some revenge on their mind this year. They got knocked off last year. Coach Brode had the Blue Jays ready to go for that game. Guys like Frank Prosey and Sean Lingle really stepped up in that game and got the first win over the Blue Devils in quite some time. So,
and I remember last year talking to Coach Brode during the Coach's Corner season, and he said, in the season before 2019, they started off really good, then they lost to Western Reserve, and that was one of the things to tailspin their season. They wanted to redeem themselves and take the next step. They definitely did that last season, and now Western Reserve has a chance to kind of wash that taste out of their mouth a little bit.
Yeah, it was almost like a tale of 2 seasons for Western Reserve in that first half and then the second half of last year's season, it seemed like. And the Blue Devils really, I think, needed to really find their defensive identity again. And I think by getting these linebacker play and getting these linebackers experience, I think they're going to find that identity and get back to what Coach Seidel said they do best, and that's make very good linebackers, strong, talented linebackers that fill those gaps. And I think that's where they're going to have their stars shine the brightest, I think, this year, especially against that Jackson Milton team. You're not going to see as much of a defensive game back and forth, I think, from Jackson Milton as you saw from Western Reserve.
Unfortunately, we lost Coach Seidel. We'll try to get him back. You never know what's going on with the
internet out there, man.
The technical issues of having a live streaming show remotely. But when you talk about Western Reserve's conference schedule, Jackson Milton's one you circle. I got to imagine just because of what they were able to do against Springfield's defense last year with moving the ball and holding the ball, not being able to finish drives, but at least having about 18 minutes of ball possession in the first half. That's going to be a game you circle as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you look at the games before it, September 24th, home versus Mineral Ridge, and October 1st at McDonald. You're going to be going through a little bit of a gauntlet in the middle of the season as well. Those are 3 tough opponents before they have to face Coach Seidel Sebring Trojans, October 15th at Sebring. So, I mean, Western Reserve is going to be facing some tough competition too going forward. And you just going into that Sebring game too, and what Coach Seidel can be looking at, they might be pretty beat up going into that Sebring game after facing teams such as the Mineral Ridge, your McDonald's, and your Springfields. And we already know that's going to be 3 very tough games. But I will say, if Western Reserve comes out with a 2-1 record or better, they're looking pretty good for the playoffs then, I'd say, for a pretty high seed, I think.
Well, some breaking news that Alliance has lost power. So that's why we lost Coach Seidel. He said he lost power in Alliance. So
all of Alliance went under.
A rare power outage in the aviator country over there in Alliance. So we definitely thank him for joining us.
At least we were able to get him on for Sebring, right?
Right. And helping us preview some of these MVAC schools. And now that we have kind of put a bow on Western Reserve, let's move on to Mineral Ridge to close out the first half of the MVAC. Talk about the Rams, what they're bringing back. I know they lost quite a bit of their offensive firepower, but what kind of things should the Rams look forward to this season?
Well, Mineral Ridge, yeah, you talked about the offensive firepower that they did lose, but they are getting back 5 starters, and I think Mark Bunch is one of the key ones, that senior quarterback that they're going to be utilizing a lot in Mineral Ridge's offense. I think he's going to be the one guy to definitely watch, as well as Nathan Rohrman, the tight end, too, for the Rams as well. Big target, big blocker for them. Going into this season, they lost Randall Miller, wide receiver, Shakir Perkins, a running back, as well as Jalen Royal Eland, the wide receiver as well. So a couple of big losses on the offensive side of things, but I mean, I think Mark Bunch is the biggest key to that. Getting that quarterback back for his second season with the Rams is going to be huge. Bunch had a pretty good year last year. And I mean, honestly, the Rams overall last year started off or ended their season very strongly. We already know that opening game against Springfield was a blowout. Springfield ended up winning 45-6. But looking at that schedule from that, I mean, big games: win against Jackson Milton 45-0, win against Lowville 48-8. I mean, they started finding themselves later in that season against these really good teams and started putting it together. And I think you can start to find that a little bit more with Mineral Ridge. You're not going to get that, I think, early jet lag offense trying to figure it out, especially with the quarterback coming into a second season. I think Bunch is going to have this offense ready to go.
And a lot of coaches will tell you if you have to be young at one spot, and you'd rather be young at the skill positions than young at the quarterback. So they're returning a quarterback that has a year of varsity starts under his belt, got rhythm, as we said, towards the end of last season. And then, their defense probably isn't talked about as much as enough as it should be, because you hold Lowville and Jackson Milton to 6 and 8 points respectively. Those are 2 big high-flying offenses that proved they could score last year. Talk about Mineral Ridge's defense and what makes them so special and what we should expect from them this year.
Looking at Mineral Ridge's defense, I mean, last year averaged just over 20 points a game allowed, which is phenomenal defensively. The returning 4 starters, Mark Bunch plays both quarterback and defensive back. You also have Zach Stacy, defensive lineman, also Mason Miller, a linebacker, junior over there, that are going to be very dynamic, but they did lose a lot on defense. And Evan Erb, a linebacker, Austin Governor, a defensive back, Tristan Weiss, a defensive back, Shakir Perkins, a linebacker, Jalen Royal Eland was a defensive back, Randall Miller was a defensive back, Devon Winford was a linebacker. But out of these guys, I would say Ty Tamburo, senior linebacker, is going to be another guy too that's going to be huge for them this year. And you're going to look into those linebacker plays, and I'm going to be expecting play from not only Tamburo but guys like Mason Miller as well as Mark Bunch, doing it both ways on the offensive and defense. You're going to look to these 3 guys to be kind of your defensive captains, and you're that defensive gel, guys to kind of mold yourself after and look at as these are the 3 guys that we need to kind of play ourselves under. And to get better, you got to kind of look at some of the guys that are doing the best on the field. And I think these are the 3 guys that are going to have big seasons defensively for the Rams.
And Ridge is going to have to utilize their speed because they got that new turf field. They're going to have to use that speed because other teams are going to come in and they're going to be able to be a little bit faster on the turf. So Middle Ridge has to be able to take advantage of the speed they do have on defense. And maybe that can be one of their strengths, the speed and quickness that their defense can bring.
I mean, absolutely, too. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to see them playing on that new turf field as well and seeing how that's going to affect them, because it's going to have some effect. Maybe it's small, maybe it's big, but it's going to have some effect playing from natural grass to a turf field. So exciting to see what that's going to look like, too, first game.
I tell you what, Shakir Perkins is sitting somewhere in a dorm room going, what the heck? You got turf after I graduated?
Yeah, I know, right? And I mean, beautiful turf field too, and they're starting to pop up all over around the area, and it seems like that's the movement that every team's eventually going to go to.
Imagining Shakir Perkins on turf is just a scary thought. I think the whole MVAC is happy they waited a year and let him be on grass.
The speed of Perkins was definitely dynamic. So I mean, having him not be on turf was huge for a lot of teams in that Scarlet tier last year.
Let's talk about the Rams schedule and what kind of things they have to look forward to.
For non-conference play, they open it up August 20th, home versus Pymatuning Valley. So Pie Valley to start, 27th at Lisbon, and then September 3rd, home versus Newton Falls. And I mean, that Newton Falls game, I think, is going to be a really fun game, honestly, to watch between the Rams and the Tigers.
And Pie Valley is a team that we don't hear a lot about in this area, but I'm telling you, they're a team that's always, very good in that conference they play in. And I think they always feel like they don't get the credit they deserve. The conference they play in usually is really top heavy. A lot of teams that struggle. And they just feel like a lot that they don't get the respect they deserve. Definitely an opportunity to gain some coming into the MVAC Scarlet tier and trying to get a win against the Rams. So I think the Rams definitely have to buckle their chin strap for that week 1 matchup.
Yeah, I think so as well. And it's part of that another tough non-conference schedule that a lot of teams in the MVAC are scheduling up for. Starting into conference play, it goes September 10th, home versus McDonald, 17th at Springfield, 24th at Western Reserve, October 1st, home versus Jackson Milton, 8th, home versus Sebring, 15th at Lowville, and 22nd, home versus Waterloo. And I mean, looking at all these games that they have set up in the way that they are in the schedule, I mean, I'm immediately looking at that back-to-back Springfield and Western Reserve matchup that they're going to have 2 away games for. Luckily, though, it looks like the Rams do have 6 home games on the docket this season.
Yeah, Coach Seidel is still contributing. We love you, Coach. Pie Valley is always huge, and he put huge in all caps. So, I mean.
Another one of those size schools, man. I mean, both depth and just general size. I mean, it's one of those schools, they come in and you go, whoa. You have to take a second and a double take at them when you see them.
The Lakers are from Pymatuning Valley.
Yeah.
We're always trying to get big teams that are always trying to get respect or dangerous.
Yeah, pretty much.
So let's break down the conference and what the conference schedule for Middle Ridge looks like.
Well, yeah, looking at that conference schedule, like I said, I mean, the 2 games that I'm looking at, that September 17th at Springfield, September 24th at Western Reserve, that's going to be big back-to-back games, and it's really going to show you kind of where you're going to be, I think, in the Scarlet tier and where you match up against some of the better teams, because immediately following that, you go home versus Jackson Mountain, home versus Sebring at Lowville. So you go right back to 2 home games, and Jackson Milton right after Western Reserve and Springfield at home. I mean, you got the home field advantage, but still, that's going to be another tough game on the docket in a row. So it's right in the middle of the season, though, which is lucky for Mineral Ridge. They can kind of figure out who they are by the middle of the season.
I think Mineral Ridge, you got to look out for when you play Jackson Milton and Lowville, because both those teams are going to have the final score of that game last year pinned in the locker room all season, because I don't think either team feels like they put any part of their best foot forward in those games, and they want to kind of really wash it out of their memory banks, and they're going to have that score probably up in their locker room all year. So when they play those 2 teams, they better get ready for a very motivated squad on the other side.
Absolutely, and it's just the same way why I think Springfield should be prepared for the Rams on the other side of things going into September 17th as well. This is not the same Rams team that Springfield beat 45-6 week 1 all the way back in 2020. Like I said, big wins against teams such as Jackson Milton and Lowville, and blowout wins too, where Mineral Ridge really did put it all together. So they had some huge games following that big loss to Springfield last year. And if they could figure things out like they did against Jackson Milton and against Lowville, they can put up some points against Springfield. As we said, 40 plus against both those two teams. So if you can contend with Springfield offensively, you're halfway home to winning the battle.
All the way back in 2020. It feels like it's been forever, but really just a year.
Yeah, really just a year, but a long time in football sense, and a lot of games that have been played since week 1 of the 2020 season. So these are two completely different teams, both Springfield and Mineral Ridge, both in just the players that they returned and lost, but also stylistically and just experience-wise.
Different team, same color. We're all good with that. And by the way, Mineral Ridge's turf looks immaculate. I can't wait to see that pop up on YSN Live's broadcast.
Going to be absolutely gorgeous. Cannot wait for August 20th.
And you're going to be calling some games at Mineral Ridge, probably the Mooney games that they play there, but you're going to be very well acquainted with that turf field.
Yeah, and I mean, excited to really kind of see that turf field too. Like I said, going to have the honor of calling a few Mooney games this year that are going to be down there with the ever-loving Jeff Betos that is going to be along my side for those games. So that's going to be looks to be great broadcast for the docket so far. So excited to see though what the Rams stadium looks like. I haven't seen the finished product yet in person. I did see it when they were working on it earlier this year back in March, but I have yet to see the finished product, so I'm very excited to see what it looks like.
Ty and Betos, the tandem that never stops giving. Good luck with that, man. We're going to take a quick time out. On the other end, we'll be talking to McDonald volleyball coach Mike Klockner about his newly appointed head coaching job in McDonald at 1 o'clock. We shift from football to volleyball next on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Hello, I'm Greg Burbick with G. Burbick Farms. For the last 100 years, my family has farmed in Columbiana and Mahoning counties. I began raising cattle in 1996 with the goal of providing a better product for you and your family on the dinner table. Our grass-fed and grain-supplemented Black Angus beef are raised with no hormones, steroids, or antibiotics. We're known for our hometown-friendly service and incredible tasting products. We're locally owned and have customers across the tri-state area. Our products go from our farm to your family. Stop by our farm on New Buffalo Road or visit us on the web at gburbickfarms.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. G. Burbick Farms, it just tastes better.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsurancesolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
If you're looking for a quality pre-owned vehicle, why shop anywhere else but Tri-State Ford? Choose from our great selection of pre-owned vehicles. Plus, we've got you covered with our exclusive Tri-State Ford Advantage. It includes a 10-year, 200,000-mile warranty with your pre-owned vehicle and much more. Come see why so many customers from the Tri-State area buy their pre-owned vehicle at Tri-State Ford.
Customer focus, community driven. Tri-State Ford East Liverpool or visit tristateford.net.
Welcome back to a Friday edition. It's Friday, end of the week of Running Point, as we are waiting for Michael Klockner, the head coach of the McDonald Blue Devils volleyball team. And Ty, when you talk McDonald, what a proud tradition over there with the Blue Devils. Going to be exciting for Michael Klockner to take over that program.
I mean, they're a culture that loves winning, eats, sleeps, and breathes a winning culture, and they love their sports teams over there. But they're a very loyal community, and they show up well to all the away games. Almost every away game that I saw, McDonald wise, whether it was football, basketball, what have you, they travel super well, and they make sure their voices are heard no matter where the game is located.
And their girls athletics last year had a pretty successful run with their softball and basketball teams, both making deep runs in the playoff. Basketball, of course, going all the way to the state championship. Volleyball last year, we'll talk a little bit about what they did last year more with Mike Klockner, but just giving a little recap of the 2020 season. They finished 12-12, 9-7 in the MVAC Scarlet tier. That was good enough for third in the league. They lost 5 seniors, and they lost their kill leader in Molly Howard, but they return sophomore setter Megan Klockner, who might have just turned into one of the best setters in the area with a couple of seniors graduating last year. She led the team in assists with over 450 assists. So McDonald losing a lot of their offensive firepower, but not losing their volleyball quarterback in Megan Klockner, the setter. So I think, just like football, you'd rather be young on the outsides than young as setting in volleyball.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got this piece of Megan Klockner that has, you said she's going into her junior year?
She's going into her sophomore year.
So 3 years of eligibility left. And I mean, this is a piece you could really build around. And like you said, a great setter, and that lines it up for all those assists that she can get too. I mean, as you know, Anthony, I mean, you know this sport better than any of us here on the network. You know that those kill getters are a lot not easier to breed, I guess, but a lot easier to find, it seems like, than a really, really good setter.
And we'll talk a little bit more about it as we are joined by Mike Klockner, head coach of the McDonald Blue Devils. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
When we were recapping your season last year a little bit, and you guys went 12-12 on the year. You're taking over the helm. When you look at last year and what you had and what you were returning, what kind of things excite you about the season this year?
We got a lot of young talent coming up. I know we lost a lot with that great athletic senior class, but we got some other players coming up to fill in the spots. So we're really excited about that.
And we were talked about earlier as well, the success for these female athletes at McDonald has been well documented last season. Success breeds success. Do you expect these athletes that are multiple sport athletes to kind of take this standard of winning and bring that culture to your volleyball squad?
Oh, absolutely. You know, McDonald, a lot of good athletes in multiple sports, and they just have the winning mentality. And that it really helps when they compete in other sports because they bring that with them to the volleyball program. So they're used to competing. So that really, really adds a lot to our program and really helps in developing it even further.
Oh, Coach, looking at your team this year and going into coaching, how do you plan on getting involvement into the program, and how do you plan on generating more interest in volleyball for McDonald this year?
Well, it's definitely helped that I was assistant the last few years. So that's kind of, give me an insight to, how things are run and how things go. We're trying to even further develop our youth programs to help with the program. So, just being more involved, being more around, not just with the varsity and JV teams, but being more involved with the junior high teams to help build more interest in the program for hopefully other girls to join.
And like we said, it's up. You lose your kills leader in Molly Howard, who finished the year last year with just under 200 kills. But you get your setter back, and she's a young setter that is going into, I believe, her sophomore season, Megan Klockner. Talk about what it's like to have a young setter run this team and how much that helps if you have to bring in some new hitters to lead you. Yes.
Megan's a hard worker. She's all about volleyball. She plays club. So she's definitely a leader on the court. We also have Maria Brazil. She's also a big leader, hard worker. So we have two very quality setters who are leaders on the floor. So it helps when you have, two of them who have had past experience, and they're really setting the example for the hitters and the other players to come in and get better. The last several weeks, the setters and hitters have been coming in early on their own time. I make it voluntary before practice, and a vast majority have been coming in, putting in the extra time and work. So that's very encouraging for these setters and the hitters to get on the same page, especially with their timing.
Even if it's slight, there's no doubt a change in coaching always creates a little bit of a culture shift. So going into this season, what can we expect from Coach Klockner's culture for this team?
I want to be very disciplined, conditioned team, playing together, communication. That's something we've been stressing since we've been doing open gyms in the summer is communication. Sometimes, last year the court got a little quiet, and, that's something we're really looking to change this year, is that the girls are always communicating with each other, always in position where they're supposed to be. So that's kind of what we're focusing on this year, is a loud, communicating, well-disciplined group.
We've asked a couple of other coaches this. What's your go-to drill to help with the communication on the court? Because we know how important it is in volleyball. So I'm sure you work on it a lot. What's your go-to kind of drill or activity to bolster the communication on the court with your team?
Well, I can't say there's really one certain drill. It's just in all drills, from simple peppering before practice, we're telling them you need every pass, we need to hear you call it. So there's really not one drill. It's something that we stress in all drills that we do, so that they get into the habit of, communicating, calling it. Line hitting drills, hitters are calling for it, setters calling, everybody's talking. So that's something we weave into everything that we do, to let them know that no matter the circumstance in the match, you always need to be communicating at all times.
What are some of your short-term and long-term goals for this team?
Well, obviously, we want to get better every day. We want to be a steady incline. Something we learn, we want to, continue to improve on it. We don't want to, fall backwards. Obviously, we always want to go after, league championship, district championship. So I guess we'll start there, see where that takes us, but it's getting better every day in practice. Increasing our strength and conditioning in the weight room, just the little things like that will help the big things more achievable.
When you look at this team and you look at some of the things that you can do with it, what kind of things excite you about taking over and being the head coach now? You've obviously been the assistant for a while, but now you get to make some of the decisions. Are there things that maybe you saw last year that could have been done, or potential that you're really excited to take control of this year?
Well, kind of we talked about it earlier, McDonald has a great tradition of great athletes. And so, we have talented athletes who are picking up on the game really quickly. Last year was last year. We have a whole new set of girls. So it's hard to compare with what happened last year to this year, because it's, we have different lineups, different girls in different positions. But we have a great group of girls working really hard. I'm surrounded by great coaching staff. So I'm really excited to get this year going.
I know practices can be limited during a volleyball season because you're playing 3 or 4 games in a day. With that being said, in a week, I'm sorry. With that being said, how important is this summer to you guys in building the foundation, building the structure of the team, considering that when the season starts, you might get 2 practices a week if you're lucky?
Yes, exactly. We were just talking about actually yesterday, when matches start, we are so limited on practice time because sometimes we have, 3 matches a week. So we really have been doing a lot of open gyms over the summer to try and get these girls caught up, especially girls who may be lacking some varsity experience. So just a lot of open gym time, a lot of reps, a lot of playing time, getting used to the flow of the game. So that's been really important for us to stress this summer.
Looking at your team this year, Coach, I don't think there's any doubt whenever a team loses someone the caliber of Molly Howard, most teams consider that as a step back and they need to take a year to rebuild. How do you prevent the team and the community from falling into that mindset of this is a rebuilding year and that we got to still move forward?
Yes, it is. There's definitely no doubt she's a loss. But we have a lot of young girls stepping up to fulfill that. Volleyball, there's 6 girls on the court at a time, so it's never just one person. It helps to have someone like that. There's no doubt about that. But we know this is when other girls have to step up, fulfill those roles. And instead of maybe setting heavy through our middle, we can spread the ball out more to other hitters, make it a little bit harder for defenses to know where we're hitting the ball from. But it's definitely a challenge, for us coaches and for our girls to step up and replace all the girls from last year.
Talk a little bit about the McDonald community, the support you guys get, and how excited you are to, knock on wood, that you get a full capacity gym and you get to feed off the energy of that crowd this year.
Oh, definitely. That was really hard last year to have limited capacity for all of our matches. Hopefully this year we can maintain our full capacity. McDonald community is so supportive, so great of all the programs, especially our program's relatively new. And I've been so grateful and thankful for all the support of the community, the school administration. It's just been a wonderful start to the program. And hopefully, this COVID thing doesn't get out of control again, that we can, have all the fans there. So I know last year was really hard with limited spectators per player. So hopefully this year we can avoid that and, get as many people in that gym as possible.
Talk to me about a time in your coaching career where you struggled or there was a bump in the road, and how you responded to it, how you used it to make you a better coach.
Oh, wow. There's been a lot of bumps in the road. I know just for me this year, taking over as head coach, there's a lot of things that go into being a head coach and just coaching, X's and O's, the fundraising, the paperwork, the organization, everything. So the last few months have been a big learning curve for me. So, I'll be happy to get a year under my belt as a head coach. So hopefully next year I can have a better understanding of, how the outside things work and the organizational stuff work. And again, it helps to have a great coaching staff with me to help me through that. No matter what happens as a coach, it's all about the players, the girls, and, helping them be the best volleyball players they can be. I'm still learning. I got a lot to learn still, so I'll do what I can, do my best, and learn as I go.
That being said, I know the job is pretty brand new. You haven't had it for too long. Has there been anything yet that it has been harder than you expected or different than you really expected when you took the job?
Well, kind of like I just said, the what's been getting me lately is the fundraising, organizational stuff. It's nice to have, I got an assistant coach, Tim Holkerode, great experience, great coach, great player. It's great to have him with me to help me. I got a great junior high coach, Cami Hefner. I'm surrounded by great coaches who have made that part of coaching easier for me. When you're surrounded by great people like that, again, it's just I'm learning the organizational aspect of it. But the more I do, the easier it's going to get, and the more experience I get, the better I hopefully will get at it.
And then you and Coach Holkerode both coach club as well with the Thunder. So I think you're pretty knowledgeable to answer this question. And we've talked to a lot of volleyball coaches about it. How much do you think club is important to the growth of volleyball in the area? We've seen so many volleyball teams get to regionals, and they're just not at that level that we see from the teams in Canton and Massillon yet. How much do you see in growth of club, and how important is the club volleyball scene to the growth of volleyball in the area?
Yes, there's no doubt club is very, very impactful to player development. Even with my own daughter, Megan, the Thunder Volleyball Club has been so instrumental in her development as a player. We've been very fortunate the last several years to each year have an increasing amount of girls playing club, which, it's very noticeable, the girls who play club and how fast their development is. But at the same time, like a small school like McDonald, we have girls playing multiple sports. And I think that's wonderful. I think playing multiple sports makes you a better athlete overall. It's, in a small school like we have, there's not a lot of girls who are just one sport specific. So, that can become kind of a problem for some of the girls as, they have softball, basketball, that may get in the way of them playing club and track as well. So, but there's no doubt, club volleyball has been so impactful to the players who have been playing for us. And it's very evident the progress they've been making because of that experience, those experiences.
In coaching volleyball, Coach, I'm just curious, in the actual game and actual coaching, what are some of your biggest pet peeves if I were to ask one of your players?
Well, I know the thing that we probably get most upset about is not communicating when it's silent. Another one probably is not attacking the ball, like sending a bunch of free balls over. I'm kind of an aggressive minded offensive person. I want to be attacking. So I don't like sending a lot of free balls over the net. So probably those two are probably the ones that get me the most aggravated, is not communicating, not being in position, especially defensively where you're supposed to be, and just not being ready to attack and kind of, just freeing the ball over instead of attacking it.
You get to be around this group more than most. Describe the personality of McDonald Volleyball and the personality of this team.
The great group of girls, hardworking girls. They when they come to practice, they really seem like they enjoy the game. They enjoy being there. Positive. They work together as a group. So, I'm very, very fortunate to be around such a group of good girls, hardworking girls, who really seem like they love the game and they work hard every day to get better. And they're always eager to learn more about the game and to continually improve on building their skills up. So I feel very, very lucky to have such a wonderful group to work with.
Now let's talk, before we let you go, about your schedule and some of the games that you have circled for McDonald, and tell everyone when you open the season.
Oh, we open up Saturday, August 21st at Columbiana. Obviously our league's a very great, very competitive league. So, every game's going to be a battle in our league. So, we have to be ready for everyone we play. Obviously, Ridge and Reserve are at the top there, but, Milton and all the other schools, Springfield, Sebring, Louisville, all of them are very competitive. And so we have to be ready for anyone we play. So, we're excited about it. We've been working very hard for this, and we're really eager to get this season going.
And Coach, my final question that I have for you, and it's just something more I'm interested about you as a person. What about Coach Klockner gives him a coaching edge, one, and part two, tell me one thing that you try to teach your girls outside of the sport of volleyball.
Well, I emphasize to them that, they're students first. So I'm also a teacher, not in the McDonald system, but I do teach. So they're students first. So I really emphasize to them, academics, you can't play volleyball forever. So, you have to be ready for life itself. So that's really something I emphasize with them. What was the second part of your question again? Sorry.
Second part, what gives Coach Klockner the edge in any matchup?
I really emphasize attention to detail. Get where you're supposed to be. Offensively, be ready to attack. So I really stress details, in all facets of the game. Because you've overlooked the details, that will catch up to you. So, attention to detail, who's where on the court, who's serving, how do they serve, they spot serving you, or they just, a hard server. So every little detail that we can know about our opponent and, how we can counter that as our team, those are things that I stress to the girls. We got to pay attention to the details.
I'm not just saying this because you're on the show. I think Megan Klockner might have stepped into the best setter in the area, to be honest. I mean, I've seen her play. I've seen her go to high-level camps. I know she's been to some really high-level college camps already as a sophomore. I have no problem seeing her play in Division I if she keeps developing. It's got to be exciting for you, not just as a coach, but as a father to see her keep developing at such a young age.
Yes, it is. You know, I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to coach my daughter. I know some parents don't have that opportunity, so I'm very thankful for the opportunity. But you know, she's a hard worker. She's all volleyball, you know, all the time. So you know, she's putting all of her effort into this. She loves the game. She's had great coaches and club to help her with it. So you know, her hard work is really helping her. You know, I just hope I do what I can to help her in her pursuit of, you know, getting to be a better volleyball player. But you know, I'm lucky as you know, coach to have a player like that. But also obviously as a father, you know, to be able to watch my daughter, you know, play and continue to develop as a player.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. We definitely appreciate your time. Look forward to covering the Blue Devils this year, and we hope there's a lot of success in the McDonald program.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, that was Coach Michael Klockner of the McDonald Blue Devils volleyball team joining us on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. And I mean it. I think Megan Klockner might just have stepped in to be the best setter in the area. I mean, we lost a lot of good senior setters last year, and there's going to be a lot of teams that are looking to prove that young kids can do it on the varsity level. McDonald, not one of those teams. You can't teach height. She's tall. She's really good. She takes it seriously, and she's been to high-level college camps. I have no problem seeing her develop into a Division I player.
She also has access 24/7 to a coach to help her out with any problem that she has too, which is another great, tremendous advantage. And I mean, it's fantastic for her too. And we know obviously there's certain clauses with practice, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with going over and asking your dad, "Hey, how should I do this?" And then you go out and do it yourself. So, I mean, just having that mindset too of having your dad be the coach. And I mean, sometimes I know that relationship can get hard at sometimes, and you got to be able to separate yourself from player coach and father daughter at sometimes, or father son, or mother daughter, whatever, what have you. But yeah, I definitely think that dynamic too, when you have that good relationship as a player coach, but also as a father daughter, it is so tremendous. And I mean, it seems like the Klockner family is well set up for Megan to have tremendous success in volleyball for her future career. I mean, she's going into her sophomore year, 3 more years of eligibility, 3 more years of knowledge that she can gain and garner, and 3 years of experience. My, oh my, look out.
Yeah. And when you talk about, I think the biggest advantage of having a parent coach is you get to go home and you can like break down film right away and kind of just talk the game. And I think it raises your volleyball IQ a lot, because you can go home and watch a college volleyball game on TV or the Olympics on TV and say, what do you think this setter is doing that makes that set so good, et cetera, et cetera. And you have your coach right behind you, you know, right in your ear.
Yeah, especially if the situation, I mean, if you have that great relationship too, and you could just be open and just ask questions all day, and you're passionate about the sport, as both of them seem like they are, I can imagine that's pretty much almost 90% of the conversations that they have throughout the day is just talking volleyball.
It doesn't hurt that he also coaches club, and, you know, he has that next level experience coaching the girls that take volleyball a little bit extra seriously. I think he's going to bring that kind of culture into the program and bring, you know, when you're on the volleyball team, you're on the volleyball team. There's no one that's here just to have a workout. You know, there's no one here just so they can have fun. I mean, they're going to be taking volleyball very seriously, because they have a coach that has that standard, coaching kids in club season that obviously take it seriously enough to pay the money to play club volleyball.
Absolutely, and you should expect a very disciplined team, like he said. Watch what she does, what his daughter does, what Megan does on the court, and you'll see that you can almost expect mirror images of play similar to Megan's on the court from this team, because that's just his type of coaching style. That's who Klockner is, and that's what you should expect from this McDonald volleyball team going into this season. Is a very disciplined team, but it's never going to be a situation, I don't think, where he's going to ask any of these other girls to do something he doesn't ask Megan to do at home probably all the time.
You know, he brought up a good point. You know, obviously people are going to say, well, you lost Molly Howard, and that was your offense leader in kills. It's going to be hard to come back from that. But now he gets to spread the ball out a little bit more and make it tougher for defenses to read where the set's going, because last year, sometimes they fell into the trap of just setting Molly Howard in the middle a little bit too much, got a little bit too predictable. Now They're going to be able to spread the ball around a little bit more and hopefully be a more even-keeled offense, not top-heavy, with one solid hitter that does the bulk of the work.
Yeah, and I mean, having that balanced approach on offense, like you said, it might bring benefits to McDonald. And I mean, you talk about the weapons. I mean, if everyone knows where that one scoring option is coming from, it's easy to kind of garner a defense to defend that. But I mean, if you have other weapons on top of that and you got multitudes of score, it's much harder to figure out a defense, like you said, or get a defense ready for a team that could score on all facets.
Just to compare it to football for our fans that aren't exactly volleyball privy, it's like, for a great example, Calvin Johnson got inducted into the Hall of Fame last year. The year after he left Detroit might have been one of the best statistical years for Matt Stafford because he wasn't forcing the ball to Calvin Johnson anymore. He was spreading it out to his all receivers. So when you lose a big guy like that, obviously there's going to be the people that say, well, you lost a big piece, and definitely Molly Howard was a big piece. But now you have the opportunity of your quarterback or your setter in volleyball, who is a top-level setter, to really start spreading the ball around a little bit more and get a versatile offense going.
I mean, even compare it in a basketball sense, you could look at those Michael Jordan Bulls teams before they won the championship, and he was scoring a plethora of the points, 37 plus per game. I mean, one of the most in scoring average history in the NBA, but he didn't win a championship with that team until the weapons of Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant started coming along and developing as well. And then they had the tandem offense, and that was what enabled them to form the triangle offense. So, I mean, to look at it in other sports, it does. It goes across all levels of sports. It's not just one sport or the major sports specific that we talk about, the four major sports specific in this country. It goes across all sports, and that you need to develop in team sports. You need to develop a team, not just an individual, to be able to win championships and win at a high level. It's a team sport first. In any team sport, it's the team that comes first, the individual that comes second.
McDonald, obviously, in a tough conference in volleyball. They have to contend with Western Reserve, Middle Ridge, two teams that made deep, good seasons last year. But definitely a team that I think is going to be in the mix in the MVAC Scarlet tier. They opened the season August 21st at Columbiana. We talked to Jennifer Martin yesterday, so now we have both those teams previewed. Going to be a great matchup in Columbiana between the Blue Devils and Clippers to start out the season. So don't miss that one on the Saturday right after football starts on August 21st in Columbiana.
I mean, get a weekend of sports already. I mean, get ready for that August 20th weekend. I mean, you got football on Thursday, you got football on Friday, you got volleyball on Saturday. I mean, 3 days right there. And not to mention week before, you got the Friday night football too. So, I mean, sports coming back full force. Golf's already in the swing of things. So, I mean, everything's looking bright and shiny here for YSN and high school sports in the future.
We will take a quick timeout. On the other end, the new head coach of the United Eagles, Mackenzie Firth, joining us on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Don't go anywhere.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
Jimmy Sutton here, Director of Isle, Purple Cat, and Golden String. We are happy to support YSN and 2 of my favorite people, Scotty Mincher and Super Dave O'Malley. We are an agency that provides services for adults with disabilities. We infuse humor, passion, and joy into their lives. If you know of any folks with disabilities that need our assistance, please contact us.
Your teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
When looking for home design inspiration, don't just be inspired, be Baird inspired. Whether new or remodeling, Baird Brothers has the latest trends like shiplap to refresh your home. Go from inspiration to installation with our wide selection of in-stock American hardwoods. From the rustic charm of antique oak to the warmth of traditional cherry, Baird Brothers has what you need to make your home inspiring. Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
Welcome back to the Friday edition of Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartell. Want to remind everybody that the comment sections are live, and so is the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning phone line, 330-886-0813. Right now, we are joined by United Volleyball new head coach Mackenzie Firth. Coach, great to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
When you talk about taking over this program, what kind of things excite you about taking over a program that was pretty successful last year and made a pretty good run at the tournament?
So we had a team last year that they had played together for a long time. We had 6 seniors. So this year I'm excited to see how the new girls fill in. They're all really athletic, so I'm super excited to see the good things that they can do this year.
Looking at this team, Coach, what is your intended culture going into this season, and what should we expect from the United Eagles this year?
So I am really big on that we hustle. No matter what happens any night, I just want them to hustle, and the other team just can't out hustle us.
Last year, 14-9 with a 9-5 record in the EOAC, finished 4th in the conference. You return your kills leader in Shapit, but you lost your assist leader in Haley Dees. Talk about what it's going to be like with your offense returning, your main source of offense, but you have to find a new setter to come run the offense. So, what's the summer been like for you trying to navigate that?
So there are 2 setters that were left in the program. One of them is a junior, Olivia Grubb, and then we have sophomore Maddie Lucas. They're both going to be great assets this year. It's just navigating who is best when and with who. Like you said, we have Tori returning, and she's really great. But pretty much every other spot other than Taylor Cope's middle, we have to find someone that can fill those spots and dig deep and do the same things that the girls did last year.
Looking at some of the successful teams around the area, what do you think are the aspects to their success? What do you think is an aspect of a good quality championship volleyball team?
I think that a team that can play defense and adjust well to what the other team is doing has a great chance of moving on in the tournament and going far. Defense is definitely one of the most important things that you see on the volleyball court.
You know, you're the new head coach, but you were helping them out last year. What kind of advantage does that give you to know what you had coming in and not have to kind of learn the culture, the personality, or how to coach these girls? You kind of knew exactly who you had and how to coach them.
Yep. So the girls, I actually started in the 8th grade there in 19. So I moved up with those girls to the JV, and then we got to mix in some of the sophomores, and the sophomores really helped the current juniors. But this year, to already know who was there really helped me get into the summer and know an idea of what I was going to have. That really helped a lot.
I've been told by some people in the United program to watch out for the sophomore class that you guys have. Am I being told right information? Is the sophomore class really strong? And if so, break down who you got and what makes them so special.
Okay, yeah, the sophomores, they are super athletic. They're a great group. No matter what sport they're playing, they're pretty tough. So we have Desiree Bush. She was new in the 8th grade, but she works hard and she loves the game. That's all. And then we have Jocelyn Irie. She is new this year at United. Well, she was new last year, but she's new to the volleyball program this year. She came to us from Salem. So she works hard. She gets after it every day. She's in the gym. Then we have Grayson Kidder. She played middle for the JV last year. She does a great job too. Grace Knight, she plays on the outside. She's great in the back row. She actually can swing anywhere in the front, so she's a great asset to have. Then we have Madeline Lucas. She was a setter for us. She has great hands. She's good about moving the ball around, knowing where the blockers are and everything. So, and then we have Lucy Stout. She is a back row player, and she will do anything to help us out on or off the court.
Those are your sophomores, but when you talk about your upperclassmen, who are the leaders that you're going to lean on this year, emotionally and verbally, and even the leaders that just lead by example?
So we only have 2 returning lettermen from last year. So those are the 2 that I'm really going to lean on to help transition the girls that played JV last year that are going to have to step up and play varsity this year. We have Tori Shappett. She's our only senior. She is definitely an example that I like to have out on the court. She doesn't really complain about much. She just gets down and does what she needs to do. Then we have Taylor Cope. She is more verbal out on the court, but she's also another great one to have. She's a good example for the girls and will do just about anything she needs to do.
Yeah, Coach. Looking at the team this year, you've highlighted some of the players already. Talk to me a little bit about how you're building the team camaraderie, though. We know playing is only half the battle. Building that team camaraderie and chemistry is the other half. How have you tried to help that, and how are the girls adjusting with the team camaraderie and chemistry?
Yeah, so they definitely adding the 2 that didn't play together last year is definitely something that we've been working on. We've just been getting in the gym. They've been playing together. Some of them have been playing together for 2 or 3 years now. So we just have to mix in those few that are new.
You get new players, and like you said, you're trying to mix them in. How much has the normal summer, opposed to the COVID summer that you guys had to have last year, really helped with being able to do some of the things that you would be able to do, maybe wouldn't have been able to do last summer?
Yeah, so last year it was crazy for everyone, having to stay apart. They couldn't really do very much team play last year during the summer. They had to have separate balls, and they could only be with certain girls. So this year, being able to come into the gym on day 1 and scrimmage or do serve receive or anything like that really helped start them to have the foundation for the upcoming season.
Tell us what a typical Mackenzie Firth practice looks like at United.
Okay, so we start off normally with stretching. That's important. We don't want anybody to get hurt. And then we do some conditioning. The girls really love it. And then we come back in the gym. We do platform work. So they're good passers, because if you can't get a pass, your offense can't really do anything else. Work on hitting, serve, receive, and then for the end, we scrimmage normally.
And before we let you go, because I know your time is very valuable and we appreciate it, talk about your schedule. What kind of games you have circled a little bit as games you're excited for, and then tell us when you open the season and who you're playing in the open.
Okay. We actually have a pretty tough league schedule. There's not a team that I would take lightly or anything. We also have South Range on our schedule this year. They're the team that knocked us out of the tournament last year. So I know that the girls and I are ready to see them and see how we can compare to last year to this year. Our first game is August 23rd. We open with Minerva at home.
All right, Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. We definitely appreciate the time that you've been able to give us. We look forward to covering United Volleyball. Look forward to talking to you again at some point in the season, and look forward to a lot of success for you guys in the program.
Yep, thank you so much for having me.
All right. That was Mackenzie Firth, United Volleyball coach, taking over first year at the helm, but has been with the program for a while. Ty, both these new coaches we've talked to have been assistants. What kind of advantage do you think that gives a coach to come in already knowing exactly what the players have to offer?
I think it typically helps schools to hire within, especially if you have a good, solid assistant coach that knows the players that players have already built a relationship or a bond to. It's a lot easier than to kind of just insert that and then immediately start right up again and not miss a beat or not really skip a beat. And kind of, it's a lot easier to transition into a different culture and a different coaching philosophy than it is to just bring someone out from outside that's totally new.
I personally love that they put South Range on their schedule, the team that knocked them out of the tournament last year. There's no better measuring stick than playing the team that ended your season the year before.
Well, especially too, just to get kind of a temperature check and see what kind of the climate is, that competition is going to be around them. And I mean, yeah, go and play the team that knocked you out last year. Go play the team that is going to serve you some tough competition going forward too. And I mean, it really kind of shows you where you are and who you are as a team against one of the area's best, what you need to improve on or what you're really good at going into the playoffs.
Getting a good luck message from Lori Marvey. We thank you for commenting on the Running Point, brought to you by ysnlive.com. Go get them, Coach Firth. And we're definitely we're echoing that because we love to see our team succeed. And United was one of the more fun teams to cover last year. Was able to broadcast a handful of their games. Such a fun team to watch. They were always kind of bubbly. They were always enjoying the process. And as much as you like to see the quote unquote robot teams that just do everything efficiently, there's something to be said about the teams that you watch that are literally out there having a good time, still putting in the work, but there's a little bit more energy when you're just having fun with it too.
Yeah, there is. It brings a little bit more entertainment to the fans too, and certainly to the parents. And you like to see that the kids are also having a good time. And it just goes to show that there's different coaching philosophies and different coaching cultures in general. You might get one that's more serious and disciplined, like we saw with McDonald, or you might get a more lighthearted coach that likes to have fun. I mean, but it doesn't just mean that one coach is better than the other, because both can be successful. That's the beautiful thing about sports and the beautiful thing about coaching. It's not a one size fits all thing, or it is a one size fits all thing. It's not catered to just one or two philosophies.
You are absolutely right. I love the coaches, whatever sport it is, that you grab the kids they have and say, what scheme or what philosophy fits these kids best? And instead of taking their own philosophy or scheme and just trying to force whatever kids they have into it, the coaches that are a lot more versatile and able to adjust to the personnel they have are the ones that have the continued success, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely think the ones that are most successful are the coaches that have a foundation of their philosophy for the players to build theirs on top of. And what I mean by that is you lay down the groundwork. You say, this is the type of team we're going to be. This is how we're going to play. And this is how we're going to behave. And then you just let the kids be creative from there, and you let the kids do whatever they need to do team culture wise and kind of build the team culture from there. It's as simple as that for a coach. And I mean, you say it's as simple as that, but it's one of the hardest things to do is lay down that foundation of a culture. for continued long-term success for them to be able to build that's on the foundation.
And I love that you brought up team chemistry to Coach Firth, because in my humble opinion, volleyball is the most important when it comes to chemistry, because no matter how good one player is on the volleyball team, there is no possible way in that sport that one player can take over a game. It can happen in basketball. I guess it can't really happen in football, but it can a little bit. You know, a running back can turn little tiny holes into big ones by breaking tackles and whatnot. It can happen in baseball where one hitter gets hot, maybe hits a couple of home runs for your team. It cannot if you're not passing, you can't set. If you can't set, you can't hit. It doesn't matter how good the rest of the players on the court are. If you're not doing everything right, you're not going to be a well-oiled volleyball team. So chemistry is just so important in that sport, and I think it's probably the sport that it's most important.
It brings a different philosophy too for coaches trying to win games and knowing that it's a team first atmosphere. And like coaches say, it helps when you have that superstar caliber player on your team, but that player itself cannot single-handedly win you a bunch of games and take you on a long playoff run like some other sports can with certain athletes.
Yeah, like Tori Shappett, she finished the year last year with 244 kills, which is great. It's great, but if you're not passing to your setter, or if your setter isn't getting her the ball, it doesn't matter how many kills she can get, because she's not going to be able to get them. I mean, it's one of those sports that I love for that fact that one player can never take over the game in the sport. And you know what, Ty, we have a call on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline. We're going to take it. Caller, you are on Running Point live on YSN. Who do we have? Hello? Well, they hung up.
Nope, there you go. You scared them off.
Maybe it was probably someone that was calling for information instead of being live on the show. That happens from time to time. We scare people away when they're like, "I'm live on a show." Boop. Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, looking at that, like you said, Anthony, you talk about your love of it not being a team, or it being a team sport and not a sport where a single player can single-handedly take over. And it kind of just keeps everyone humble in the sport in general, keeps everyone with a level head. And we talk with Coach Bailey with soccer, and it kind of brings into that stay even mentality that he talked about. And I mean, it's a great mentality, but I mean, bringing it up too with volleyball in general too. It can cross over sports to volleyball as well. And that you have to stay even mentality, because the person next to you is just as important as you and serves just as much purpose as you, no matter the skill gap you may have.
Just to bring it full circle, I mean, we talked to McDonald head coach to start the hour, and I've said it. I think Megan Klockner is one of the best setters in the area. But if they don't pass, or if they don't, hit accurately, then it really doesn't matter. They're not going to succeed as a team. And that's just one of the things I love about the sport.
Yeah, and it looks to be a fun one going into this season. Hopefully with COVID restrictions off too, we're going to look for a fun and exciting volleyball season this year.
And we will definitely continue to talk to coaches and players as the season and the show goes on. We have a lot of exciting guests planned for the future. But for now, we will take a quick break, be back with more, and we'll do the second half of the MVAC football preview on the other end of this break on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Ah, the details. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is one fine ride. Perfect cornering, superb handling, sporty and stylish, power to spare, plus awesome mileage. Yeah, jaw-droppingly beautiful lines and well-appointed with luxurious trim. Put more oomph in your life and start beholding the molding. Find your home's fine hardwood at BairdBrothers.com.
Planning a project around your home or rental property? Trust the electrical service to the local experts with 62 years of serving the Mahoning Valley. Joe Dickey Electric is your local go-to source for responsive, reliable residential electrical work. From everyday maintenance and repairs to new installations, electrical upgrades, and safety inspections, no job is too big or too small. Call Joe Dickey Electric today, 800-549-3976, or visit DickeyElectric.com. That's DickeyElectric.com.
for heating, cooling, and indoor air quality. The Mahoning Valley trusts MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning, offering worry-free repair, service, and installation. Call MP Vivo today for a free estimate.
MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning. We're your energy-efficient experts.
Attention, current lessees of most makes and models. Tri-State Ford has a special offer for you. Come to Tri-State Ford, turn your lease early, and get up to $2,500 in trade equity toward a new Ford or pre-owned vehicle. Plus, our exclusive Tri-State Ford Advantage includes a 10-year, 2,000-mile warranty. Early lease turn-in for most makes and models with up to $2,500 trade equity.
Customer focus, community driven. Tri-State 40 Liverpool or visit tristateford.net.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yokley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
News doesn't stop after the sun goes down. Sometimes you just have to hustle to get it. At 21 News, no matter how far it is, no matter what it takes to get there, we're working to bring you the best stories and the freshest content at 11 p.m. with the context and clarity that makes it worth staying up for, no matter what time it is. 21 News at 11 with me, Aaron Simonek, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 11, news that's worth your time.
WRS Wealth Advisors is the area's premier wealth and retirement specialist. With our combined 70 years experience and comprehensive wealth strategy, we assist our clients attain their goals. Call 330-965-0370 to learn more about our individual and corporate financial planning services, or visit wrswealthadvisors.com. Good luck, athletes.
Every customer has a story, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Welcome back to the Friday edition of Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. They go the extra mile for you, and me and Ty going the extra mile here today as we approach the final hour of Running Point, and we continue our preview of the MVAC Scarlet Tier football season, and we will venture from the first four that we had in the first hour and go to McDonald to kick off our second half. And Ty, when you talk about the Blue Devils, what are they returning? What do they lose? And what are some of the prospects for them this season?
McDonald last year was 7-2 overall. They were a team that averaged over 31 points per game. They were also a team that averaged just over 300 yards of total offense, to over 350 yards of total offense, I should say. They are returning 3 starters this year from that offense, and Ty Agler, the junior kicker for them, as well as Nathan Gilligan, the senior running back, Logan Hawk, a senior that's just a phenomenal athlete, and Kyle Crown, who is an offensive lineman and a junior. Some losses they had: Dominic Cartico, which was huge, wide receiver for them; Hunter McCombs, an offensive lineman; Caden Crown, offensive lineman; Greg Murdich, offensive lineman; and Dom Shadle, quarterback for them. So quarterback that they're going to be replacing Shadle with is Logan Hawk. So he's going to be the guy to watch out for, I think. He's going to be the guy that I think they're going to be inserting in. He was a phenomenal athlete. They needed a position for him. I think they're going to put him at quarterback, it looks like, this year. He's going to get to take over. And on top of that, though, it's going to be interesting to see with that offensive line. There's some holes in front of it. So that's going to be interesting to see how they fill that offensive line holes.
Dom Shadle, one of the stars of the area last year, and they called him quarterback, but he was a great runner for that offense. You know, got some big shoes to fill if you're stepping into that shadow. Dom Shadle really lit the world on fire with McDonald's offense last year.
Yeah, but the great thing about McDonald's offense, it is very, like you said, catered to the run. So guys like Logan Hawk, who are just phenomenal athletes, are going to find an easier time stepping into that type of offense. Hey, I mean, that's all you really need to be as a quarterback in that McDonald offense is a great runner and a great running option. Anything that you could do throwing wise is just icing on the cake for McDonald. So, I mean, we're looking Logan Hawk, and I expect big things from him. What I'm interested to see, though, and we know McDonald is so good at breeding those offensive and defensive linemen and getting linemen in that system.
Matt Seidel loves linemen, and
yeah,
he loves the McDonald offensive line when he doesn't have to play them.
Yeah, but losing 3 starters on the O-line is going to be interesting going into this season, filling those holes. I mean, sometimes it's not as easy. I mean, you got some big shoes to fill with 3 seniors that seniored out last year.
Yeah, but the one thing, I mean, you said it, McDonald breeds linemen. So I feel like replacing those guys won't be as hard as some other programs would have, because they just have great coaches that know how to coach up linemen. And when your offense is built around running the ball as much as McDonald's is, I feel like that's a point of emphasis in the offseason to make sure the linemen are on the same page.
Yeah, and I think McDonald, like you said, should be just fine with that because they have a lot of big offensive linemen, a few sophomores and a few juniors that I've been seeing on this roster too that have, from what I've seen, great size and great weight from what they're posting too. I mean, height, weight-wise, I mean, that's what you want up front for that offensive line and basically building a wall, and it looks like McDonald has a couple of pieces that are in place to do so.
Want to remind everybody that the comment sections are open, and any platform you're watching on, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Also, the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning fan line open as well, 330-886-0813. So if you have thoughts on MVAC Scarlet Tier football or anything that your little heart desires, make sure to call us or comment and let us know what you think. Now, when you talk about McDonald's defense coming back, what are some of the key things about that defensive unit?
That defensive unit last year was a defensive unit that allowed just under 20 points per game and just over 200 yards of total offense, which is absolutely insane for a defensive squad. They were, I think, 17th, 18th, something like that in the area. And that is incredible, but losing a lot of pieces on that defense and some of the losses, like we said, Dominic Cardico played a defensive back. You had Nick Ferrandino that played linebacker, Hunter McCombs, defensive line, Shadle played defensive back as well, and Caden Crown, defensive lineman. These were pieces that were part of what made that defense so good. And you're losing a lot of these pieces now. Can they maintain that same defense? They're going to have 3 starters returning in Kyle Crown, Logan Hawk, and Nathan Gilligan. Gilligan and Hawk, both your seniors on that defensive team. Gilligan at the linebacker spot, Hawk at the defensive back. And with Hawk being quarterback too, this might be your team captains too on both sides of the ball with both Gilligan and Hawk, and this might be the 2 that you're looking to lead this defense, and it might need it too with a lot of young guys ready to step up and fill those roles in the defense, but they definitely need a good leadership, and I think they have 2 guys that are ready to step into those leadership roles.
And with their ball control ability and the ability of the offense to hold on to the ball for long periods of time, defense is going to have to get used to sitting for a little bit and being able to get warm on the sidelines. And I don't think people talk about how tough that can be for high school kids to be sitting for, 20 minutes maybe as their offense just methodically drives the ball down the field and then getting up and ready to go out there and play defense.
Yeah, and I mean, the defense is one of those defenses.
It does help that a lot of players play both ways, but at the same time, the ones that don't.
Yeah, but I mean, defensively, this is a defensive team that seems like they're the Energizer bunnies, and they just keep on going. I mean, they're just relentless with the stamina that they bring. Tackling machines, too, is this McDonald defense, and I'm expecting a lot of the same. They lose some of those big tacklers, but you still have Gilligan on that team, and Gilligan is one of the better tacklers in the area, so he's going to be one of those guys you look to make a lot of those big-time stops, too, and prevent guys going for extra yards and turning some 10-yard plays into some 5-yard plays.
You bring up a good point, and that's McDonald tackling. It's always at a premium tackling technique in McDonald. And you watch a lot of high school teams in the area, and you watch their tackling drills, and maybe not the best tackling ever, from some teams, but McDonald teams always have the technique of tackling down. That's hats off to their coaching staff. They're not just wrapping guys or arm tackling and holding on and hoping they go down. They're hitting them. They're squaring them up and they're tackling the right way.
Not often you see many guys get a lot of extra yards on McDonald, and when they do, they certainly earn it against that defense because it is certainly catered to make sure that teams don't take extra yards and don't get those extra yards on big plays against McDonald. They're very tuned to stop them when that defender gets to the ball, gets to the man with the ball, that ball stops there. And I mean, that's exactly how McDonald's always been with defense as long as I could remember, having great tacklers over there on that defense, especially with a great linebacking core and great tackling secondary.
What are some names on that defense that you think will be the leaders that the Blue Devils lean on to be leaders on that defensive unit?
Like I said, man, Nathan Gilligan is one of those guys that is just he's a tackling machine. And then, of course, I mean, you got Logan Hawk that's playing both ways. And I mean, he might be the best athlete on the team overall. And I mean, playing both quarterback, he's going to create a lot of offense with his legs there. And I mean, his legs and his speed is going to be a huge factor on defensive backs too, playing defensive back, because he's most likely going to be put right on the fastest receiver out of the gate, or put him right on a running back and have him spy a running back out of the secondary too. You could have him do that because he is also one of those guys that is a very good tackler, especially for a defensive back.
If he forces a lot of turnovers, Ball Hawk headline kind of writes itself.
It really does, doesn't it? And I mean, it's beautiful.
It is perfect. So we definitely hope that we see a lot of turnovers forced, not given up, but forced by Logan Hawk. That way we can just slip that headline right in there.
We want to write at least one headline with that.
Talk about McDonald's schedule and what they have looking forward to in front of them, the teams that will be standing in their way from a successful season.
Well, looking at it, they open up with their non-conference schedule. August 20th, home versus Brookfield. August 27th, home versus Columbiana. And September 3rd, home versus Valley Christian. So all their non-conference games, 3 straight home games to start the season. Pretty tough competition, though. But, I mean, certainly the competition I think McDonald is looking for to get some good offensive teams into McDonald to test that defense.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Brookfield right off the bat. Those are 2 teams that love to be physical, love to run the ball, and it's going to be like one of the quickest games of the season. Ball control is going to be at a premium. Who's going to hold it longer? And it might go down to who has the ball last.
And it very well could be, too, with that Brookfield offense up there as well. We previewed them yesterday. Go check that out if you haven't yet. But, I mean, they're another team that has very complete offensively and defensively. And it's going to be a great opening week and a great test for both teams, August 20th.
Great reminder, by the way, that Ty brought up. If you miss any of our previews and you want to check them out, you can find past running points on ysnlive.com/running point, or you can go to our YouTube page into the archive section of past live videos and find all the Running Point episodes there. And you can see any previews that you've missed, because we've done a lot of them this week, and we're continuing them here with McDonald. Talk a little bit about their conference schedule and what it looks like.
Opens up September 10th at Mineral Ridge, goes through September 17th, home versus Sebring, September 24th, home versus Springfield, October 1st, home versus Western Reserve, and that is their last home game of the season before closing it out 3 straight on the road. October 8th at Lowville, 15th at Waterloo, and 22nd at Jackson Milton.
That's going to be a tough stretch to end the season, 3 straight road games. I got to think that the coaching staff at McDonald wants to be in a good spot going into those final 3 games, so the pressure to win those 3 isn't all on their shoulders.
Yeah, and McDonald, another one of those teams that has 6 home games, but really front-loaded those home games in the beginning of the season. 6 of their first 7 are at home, with the only exception, September 10th, being at Mineral Ridge before they close out 3 straight at home. I don't know if this was what they wanted intended for or what, but I mean, it is definitely a tough break to get 3 straight away games to end your season, especially if you're trying to fight for a playoff spot.
That means protecting your home field is going to be so important this year for McDonald, because if you, like I said, if you go into those 3 games pretty much needing those 3 wins or needing 2 out of 3 wins to get into the playoffs or something crazy like that, then you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on your kids to be road warriors.
You got to be happy, though. I would say you would be happy if you are McDonald that you have both Springfield and Western Reserve both at home this year. Those are two matchups that can go either way. I truly believe it. I think even that Springfield matchup, as strong as Springfield is and as high and hot as everyone is on Springfield, getting back to the state championship or making deep playoff runs, I truly think McDonald was one of those teams that could have done it and knocked Springfield off last year. And I think Springfield, that September 24th game, is going to be a huge game for both teams going into that week of the season, week 6.
I'll say this, McDonald is built to beat a team like Springfield. Not saying that they will, not saying that they should. I'm just saying they have, if you're putting like together a puzzle and you're trying to put together the puzzle of how to beat Springfield, McDonald has a lot of those pieces on their team of things that you could say, okay, we need this to beat Springfield. We need this to beat Springfield. We need this. I think McDonald is one of the teams that definitely has the pieces in place and definitely could say with a firm foot in the ground that they have a chance to shock the world and beat the Tigers.
And, I mean, you look at their home schedule. I mean, Brookfield, Columbiana Valley Christian, Sebring, Springfield, Western Reserve. You got to figure you need at least 4 wins out of that home schedule to get yourself in a good spot for the playoffs, with the 4 away games being Mineral Ridge, Lowville, Waterloo, and Jackson Milton. And getting 4 wins against those 6 home teams, it's going to be a challenge for McDonald. But luckily they do have a lot of those hard matchups that are going to be toss-up games at home. So going to be interesting to see. But I think that those 3 games, those closeout games, are going to be dangerous, especially that 15th game at Waterloo. It's another one of those trap games, sandwiched in between Lowville and Jackson Milton. It is definitely one of those games where you finally think, oh, wow, 3 straight away games. Maybe this is a break in the schedule. You can't take it that way. You have to take these last 3 games being all away very serious, because this could be what propels you and get you a very good seed in the playoffs.
I'm definitely looking forward to that Lowville game, because those are 2 teams that are opposite styles. And we talk about it a little bit earlier in the week. You always wonder who's going to control the tempo in those kind of games. And McDonald versus Lowville is no different. Lowville loves to gun it and loves to score quick. McDonald wants to hold on to the ball and run methodically down the field. Which team controls the tempo is going to really decide which team has the upper hand in that game.
Exactly, and you might see a time of possession be very heavily favored in McDonald's way, because Lowville is one of those teams in 4 or 5 passes, they could put it in the end zone, and that's just the way they are. And I mean, they air it out like Coach Seidel said earlier. They're a team that plans to – they might be airing it out 50 times a game, which is insane for a high school level around here to think about someone throwing the ball 50 times. But when you have someone like that, Vinny Ballone behind center, you can do that. So for McDonald, yeah, that defense is going to be huge, and tackling, especially if you're going to get beat too on those hot routes, those streak routes downfield, you got to make sure you get those tackles and stop them dead in their tracks so they don't get extra yards on you.
Perfect segue to move on into Lowville's preview. And we talked about Vinny Ballone. What are some of the other guys that are coming back that make that offense so high-powered and so electrifying?
This team was 4-6 last year, so they were treading right around 500. But a team that really is ready to make that next step offensively, I believe. They averaged just under 30 points per game for the season last year, which was in the top 25 in all of the area. Averaged just under 350 yards of total offense. They are returning 8 of their starters from last year, and I mean, Vinny Ballone, just to start, the junior quarterback for Lowville, is going to be the highlight of the show. I mean, on top of that, you got Brady Banofsky, a junior wide receiver for them, Anthony Lucente, the tight end, Anthony Lucido, the offensive lineman, Kyle Miller, another offensive lineman, Max Jones is also going to be on their O-line, Alex Modelewski, another wide receiver for them, Francisco Rivera Ocasio is also on their offensive line. So they're returning pretty much their entire offensive line, their entire receiving core, their quarterback, and their tight end, but the only loss is really being Cole Banofsky, the older of the brothers, the wide receiver that's gone, as well as Taz Sanchez, the running back for them. But as we've heard before, the running game is going to be maybe not non-existent, but it's going to be practically non-existent over in Lowville. And you got to figure, Anthony, returning all your receivers, your O-line, your tight end, your quarterback from last year, all of them, most of them just in their junior year, with the exception of course, the line. This is a team that looks like they're ready to make a big run this season.
Maybe the traditional running game isn't really a big factor, but I'll tell you what, and this is kind of a misnomer to a lot of teams that throw the ball a lot. They're going to be able to use screens a lot to kind of supplement their run game. And especially, people are going to be pass rushing them a lot. That's going to set up the screen game, and that makes the running back position really important for Louisville, but it's got to be a running back that can get in open space, catch the ball, and then run, because they're going to use screens a lot. And, maybe the traditional running game isn't a factor, but that kind of supplements as their running game, how well they can use the screens.
And they are real close on offense too, man. I tell you, their offense is explosive. And another guy we talked about, Brady Banovsky. I mean, this is a kid, 63 catches last year, just under 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. Like, this is a kid too that's an explosive wide receiver. He did that as a sophomore too. So going into his junior year, another year under his belt, you can only imagine that his stairs are climbing from here, and his potential is sky high. So I mean, so many potential threats and weapons on this Louisville team for Vinny Ballone to just continue developing.
Speaking of Vinny, not my cousin, but still pretty good. I know you have his numbers pretty right in front of you, and I know off the air we were talking about some of his numbers. Just go over this. What makes this kid so special, and what makes Louisville? Obviously, they can't do the offense they're going to do without him.
I mean, Vinny Ballone last year threw for over 2,400 yards, just under 2,500 yards, 34 passing touchdowns, as well as completed over 50%, 54, just under 55% of his passes, as well as toting on 350 plus rushing yards on the year as well. I mean, just a fantastic season all around too. And I mean, you imagine this in a 10-game season over the course of 10 games. This is a kid too that is going to be airing it out a lot more, and the chains are kind of going to be loose going into his junior year. Sophomore year, they were kind of making sure, throw the ball, kid. You're good at doing that, but we want to make sure you're still playing within the system. But now I think the chains are coming loose, and I think you're going to see a huge year for Ballone. Just hopefully you don't see any injuries. Of course, you hope for no injuries on any football team, but you really hope that all these guys stay healthy, because if they do, it's going to be showtime over there in Louisville.
Well, obviously now Vinny Ballone, and he's earned it, but with every team that plays them, he's going to be circled about 500 times on that scouting report. What do you think is going to be the counter to that? Because now all of a sudden there's a book on Vinny Ballone, and they have to make sure, every team's going to make sure that, hey, we can't let Vinny Ballone beat us. We're gonna have to make him uncomfortable. Well, what do you think the counter for Louisville is to that?
I mean, the key to not letting Vinny Ballone beat you is you can't let his weapons beat your defensive backs. I mean, that's the simple key to it, as you got to account for Brady Banovsky as one of the top receivers in the area, as a kid that's going to probably put close to the same numbers he did last year in 1,000 yards receiving, and probably close to the same touchdown totals as well. There's so many weapons all over the place for this Louisville team that it's going to be hard to stop Ballone, because you have to stop all the weapons. And it's like, if you can cover Banovsky, then you have to worry about Anthony Lucente, who's a great blocker and a great catcher too, as a tight end as well. And then if you get past all that, you got Alex Modolewski, a junior wide receiver too, for them, that's also very, very talented as well. So there's so many weapons around this team for Vinny Ballone that it's going to be hard to totally shut down this offense. You kind of have to pick your battles and pick which ones you want to try to shut down. You got to if you're going to let one guy beat you, you got to kind of say, this is the guy we're going to let beat us. Nobody else can.
And I think Coach Seidel in our first hour touched on it too. You can't let Vinny Ballone get out of the pocket. He's one of those new age quarterbacks that we see a lot in the college game, and starting to see a little bit more in the pro game. They do their best work when they're improvising outside the pocket. So you got to make sure you contain them if you're a defense.
Yeah, Vinny Ballone has some height, but not like the tallest guy in the world at quarterback. So especially getting out of the pocket, getting outside and away from the line, getting a much clearer view ahead to be able to throw his passes a lot more accurately. Yeah, that is one of the keys. You got to keep him contained. You might see a lot of more contained defenses against Vinny Ballone, trying to keep him within that pocket. But still, Vinny Ballone still has enough height to where he could see over a decent amount in most lines to where he could still be effective in the pocket. But certainly you don't want him to get out of the pocket, because he will almost guaranteed beat you every time.
And back to the original question, I think the way to counter a team that's trying to contain your quarterback, you simply just move the pocket. You make sure that you still get Vinny Balone on the run. Moving pockets are a great way to get your quarterbacks loose without having to make them improvise in a traditional pocket. So you might see a lot of Louisville's plays just kind of move the pocket over and get Vinny Balone on the run a little bit.
I mean, yeah, and it might just be that. And with all the options and all the weapons that Vinny Balone has, too, you always kind of got to keep yourself on your toes because he could also take off and run with it, too, is the thing. I mean, we talk about Bo Brungard in this division, in the Scarlet tier. Vinny Balone's another one of those quarterbacks, and that's why I said that's going to be a great matchup looking forward.
Let's talk about Louisville's defense and what that unit brings to the party. We talk about their high electric offense. Defense still has a job to do. They got to keep people off the board. What are they bringing back on defense?
And this is where Louisville struggled, and partly why they had a 4-6 record last year is because they were able to stay in a lot of games offensively. It was defense that was the problem, and we're looking for improvements on this defensive team that was very young last year. It was a defensive team that allowed 37 points per game and just under 300 yards of total offense. They are returning most of their starters last year, and a lot of the starters were two-way players. So Brady Banovsky is a linebacker as well. Matt Lucido is a linebacker as well. Tino Rivera Ocasio is a linebacker as well. And then you have guys like Anthony Lucido, who's a defensive lineman, Vinny Lako, who's a linebacker, as well as Braylon Dabney, who's a sophomore defensive back that looks to be pretty good for such a young guy over there at a secondary for the defense of Louisville. But yeah, Vinny Lako is going to be one to watch. I think Anthony Lucido on the defensive line is going to be really fun to watch as well. I think he's going to be making some noise and stuffing a lot of running options for teams that they face, such as your McDonald's.
Lucido does such a good job of penetrating the line, and that's what makes him so tough. I mean, he's a bigger kid, but he's very shifty when you watch him play on the defense, and I think he's got really good handwork too. So he's able to kind of do those swim moves, get the offensive lineman's hands off of him, and can just kind of shift into a gap, and that's something that you don't see too much from this level of defensive line. But when you watch him play, he's got the moves with the hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like I said, you're expecting him to be a lot more effective in the run stopping schemes and filling a lot more of those gaps and really just preventing the runs right up the middle. He's really good at that. And if they slide him over to edge to try to get him into the pass defense game and try to get some pass pressure on him. I mean, he can do that too. He has potential to do that because he is quick off the edge as well if they put him there.
They might just do that because Louisville needs a pass rush. I mean, they didn't really do a great job putting pressure on quarterbacks last year, and they're going to need one.
Yeah, and especially with guys like your Bo Brungards and stuff in the division that you're going to have to face this year, you're going to need someone on the pass rush, and they might just make that transition and keep him full-time on the edge and have him be a full-time pass rusher.
I think he's the absolute emotional leader of this team, though. He's high energy, celebrates the big things that happen. Definitely one of the emotional leaders of the defense. As he goes emotionally, so does the rest of the Rockets D.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, looking at this team's schedule, too, I mean, we look at the conference or non-conference schedule. They open up at Columbiana August 20th. Campbell Memorial is home August 27th, and then at Wellsville September 3rd. So, I mean, the schedule, too, I mean, a little bit favorable. There's some tough matchups in there, too. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of 50-50 matchups, it seems. They haven't really scheduled above. These look like they're going to be good competitive games for the Rockets.
I look forward to the Columbiana game, to be honest.
Yeah, opening up, too, at Columbiana Clippers versus Rockets. I think that will be a very fun game to watch as well.
So many great week one matchups. I can't wait for August 20th, by the way. But that's going to be one where Columbiana, kind of like Western Reserve, coming off a year that would be great for some teams, but not quite great to Columbiana's standard. They're trying to kind of come back and rebuild a little bit. And they're going to be a team that's hungry week one to kind of send a statement to the rest of their conference in the EOAC and send a message to the rest of the area. So I think that'll be a game, both teams trying to prove something in week one, that they're going to be one of the teams to highlight in the area.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it'll be interesting to see. And you might see a lot of fireworks too if it's a nice warm day and weather prevents any rain from dropping on our heads for week one this time.
Is it in Columbiana?
Yes, it is.
Fireworks at Firestone.
There you go. There's your headline. He's already getting ready for it.
There we go.
But yeah, that should be a good game, and you should see a lot of offense in that week 1 game.
Talk about their conference schedule and how it lines up when they get into the MVAC.
Opens up home against Springfield September 10th, goes to September 17th, home versus Jackson Milton, 24th at Waterloo, October 1st at Sebring, October 8th, home versus McDonald, 15th, home versus Mineral Ridge, and 22nd, home versus Western Reserve. We highlighted, too, that Springfield game is going to be one of the games I've already circled, and I'm excited to see, just because I want to see Brungard versus Boulogne. And I think with it being at the Rockets, it adds a little bit more of an edge, too. Kind of evens the odds a little bit more with Lowville playing at home, giving them home field advantage against the well-traveled and the well-oiled machine that is Springfield that will be coming into town. But again, this is one of those matchups where there's going to be so much offense in this game.
And the game I'm highlighting is actually right after that, because I'm interested not just in how they play against Springfield, but how they react to that game, whether which way it goes. I mean, if they're able to knock off Springfield, obviously they're going to be on such an emotional high. Can they come back down and get ready for Jackson Milton and be even keel? And if they fall to Springfield, they try their best, but they fall. Are they able to bounce back real quick to play a Jackson Milton team that really, I mean, that was a thrilling game last year, Lowville versus Jackson Milton, one of the thrilling games on the whole season's docket. So can they bounce back from a loss if they drop that game against Springfield to gear up for Jackson Milton? I think that'll be really interesting. I'm really interested in games right after big opponents. So
yeah, and I mean that'll be the mark of how mature this team has become. And I mean, teams last year and a team full of sophomores and juniors might not have been able to react as well, but a team full of a lot more juniors and seniors might be able to, and a team full of guys that have another year under their belt might. I will say though, as far as Lowville's schedule, they made out with having all the tough matchups be at home in Western Reserve, McDonald, Mineral Ridge, Jackson Milton, Springfield. All the tough matchups, all the super tough matchups that we are expecting for this season are all at home, where the kind of 50-50 games are kind of more on the road. So you got the at Waterloo, at Sebring, at Wellsville, at Columbiana, which I think are all going to be very good competitive games that can really go either way. But those ones are on the road, and the games where you're going to need a little bit extra boost, you got them all at home. So I'd say it's a favorable home schedule for the Rockets.
I think their non-conference schedule is going to be really important. How much momentum can they take into the start of their conference season is going to be big. I mean, if they can come into that Springfield game 3-0, then they're going to be riding really high going into Springfield. And a loss wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they were to drop that game.
Yeah, and they're one of those, again, another one of those teams that have 6 home games too. And out of the 6 home games, they're all favorable. They're all the favorable matchups you want to be at home. The big-time matchups, those big teams that are feeding off of the crowd. You don't have to go to McDonald. You don't have to go to Springfield. You don't have to go to Ridge, which is a very good thing if you're the Rockets, and you kind of hang your hat on that, saying we don't have to play any of these tough away games this year. Now, granted, I have to say that Sebring, Waterloo, Wellsville, and Columbiana aren't tough and don't have great fans, because they do. But we talked about like the McDonald community that has been built for years, and the Springfield community that has been a huge traveling football school the last couple of years, especially. You don't have to face them and worry about going into their home and try to upset them. But
you do have to worry about their crazy fans coming into your home.
Yeah, you do have to worry about that, but you'd rather have them in your house than you go and visit theirs. But I do think, I would say, and I'll make this prediction right now, I think if the Rockets are going to take 4 home games this year, they are going to make the playoffs, I think. Because out of those 6 games, those 6 tough games, if you could win 4 of those conference games at home, you're sitting.
Think if you do that and then you win your 3 non-conference games, that's 7 wins. That could get you in the playoffs.
Yeah. Even if you win 2 of your non-conference games too, I think you're in a decent position too. 6-4 should be one to get you talking points in to at least maybe sneak in the playoffs as well.
Should be a very positive season for Lowville. We're going to take a quick break. On the other end, we'll wrap up our preview of the MVAC Scarlet Tier with Jackson, Milton, and Waterloo. Don't miss that on the other end of this break on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town.
Ah, the details. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is one fine ride. Perfect cornering, superb handling, sporty and stylish, power to spare, plus awesome mileage. Yeah, jaw-droppingly beautiful lines and well appointed with luxurious trim. Put more oomph in your life and start beholding the molding. Find your home's fine hardwood at BairdBrothers.com.
Planning a project around your home or rental property? Trust the electrical service to the local experts with 62 years of serving the Mahoning Valley. Joe Dickey Electric is your local go-to source for responsive, reliable residential electrical work. From everyday maintenance and repairs to new installations, electrical upgrades, and safety inspections, no job is too big or too small. Call Joe Dickey Electric today, 800-549-3976, or visit DickeyElectric.com. That's DickeyElectric.com.
For heating, cooling, and indoor air quality, the Mahoning Valley trusts MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning, offering worry-free repair, service, and installation. Call MP Vivo today for a free estimate.
MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning. We're your energy efficient experts.
If you're looking for a new Ford vehicle, why shop anywhere else but Tri-State Ford? Choose from our great selection of new Ford models. Plus, we've got you covered with our exclusive Tri-State Ford Advantage. It includes a 10-year, 200,000-mile warranty with your new Ford. Come see why so many customers from the Tri-State area buy their new Ford at Tri-State Ford.
Customer focus, community driven. Tri-State 40 Liverpool or visit tristateford.net.
Welcome back to Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartell as we continue our MVAC previews and we venture into Jackson Milton, North Jackson for the Blue Jays. Ty, talk a little bit about what the Blue Jays are bringing back this year on offense and what people should watch out for in North Jackson.
Well, we talked about Western Reserve having a tale of two seasons last year. So did the Blue Jays. They seem like two completely different teams on their way to their 6-3 record, which was a very, very successful season in Blue Jay standards and knocking off rival Western Reserve last year too. And a part of that team was their offense was 28, just over 28 points per game that they averaged. It was in the top 25 in the area. But the thing is, they're only returning a couple of starters on that offense, and that is going to be Chase DeDominic is going to be their offensive lineman. Jake Gross, also offensive lineman. Gerald Ihrig is going to be their tight end junior that's coming back, and Ethan Evans is going to be coming back. He's a phenomenal athlete as well. But, I mean, you're losing Mike French off of the offensive line. Cole Grope, their wide receiver, is no longer there. Noah Kramer, another one of those athletes. Aaron Landis is no longer there. Frank Prosey's no longer there. And Logan Pugh's no longer there. So, I mean, you lost a lot of starters, 9, I think, in total. It's going to be hard to kind of come back, but you just kind of hope if you're Jackson Milton and you know, we know Coach over there pretty well. But it looks like that this team needs to really hope that these younger guys that they had come along in the season really kind of develop and step into that next role, because they really kind of need to for Jackson Milton not to miss a beat, I think, this season. But, I mean, who knows, too, because Coach Broad over there does a great job. I think this is his 5th season going into to coaching. So if anyone can have this team right and ready after a very successful season, I mean, hey, he was able to get that team back up there. I think he'd be able to keep it going.
And this is a Jackson Milton program that struggled for a long time, a lot of years of just struggling. And then in 2019, they won 5 games, felt like they left some on the table, came back and won 1 more game in 2020 with 6. They're going to have to keep taking that step as a program, and they want to keep taking that step. And I think they absolutely can keep taking those steps. They've definitely garnered the respect of some people in the area. They have some newfound confidence within the program, and I feel like a winning culture is back in Jackson Milton, which is half the battle.
Well, yeah, and I mean it stretches amongst all sports too. We saw how successful they did in baseball this year, as well as basketball, winning a playoff game again against Western Reserve in the playoffs. So I mean, Jackson Milton has been able to consistently, at least on the boys' side of things, been able to handle their rival Western Reserve fairly well. And it's going to be interesting to see this year if they take that next step too. With losing a lot of starters, it feels like they're taking a step back, but can they still take a step forward? And what I mean by that is just stay competitive. Can they stay competitive and not take that step back, be around that 5-6 win mark still? And anything I think more than that is going to be icing on the cake. And I think it is possible for this Jackson Milton team. And I think the greatest thing about this Milton offense is that nobody knows what to expect right now.
Oh yeah, that's kind of like, if you have them week 1, which we're going to break down their schedule in a little bit, you have to be sitting there like, what are they going to bring to the table? You know, what do we got? You're going to try to scramble to find their scrimmage tape, but they're probably not going to show too much in their first or second scrimmage. So as an opposing coach, you're just going to be like, okay, we have to adjust on the fly and do whatever they adjust to whatever they bring out on offense.
And I mean, you don't know if they're going to be run heavy, if they're going to be pass heavy. We don't know what their whole situation is. We know that they had guys contending for certain spots too, and we don't know of anything for sure yet. I don't believe so, but it will be interesting going forward, seeing what guys they have in place and what kind of team they're going to be going forward this year.
A next step would be 7 wins for the Blue Jays. They won 5-19, 6-20. Next step is 7. I think that's a very reasonable goal for the football team to have, to keep taking those steps.
I absolutely think so as well. And I mean, just to stay competitive, and yeah, if you're around that 5, 6, 7 win mark, I mean, if you could take that next step, I mean, that would be tremendous too, because then that just shows that these younger guys really did buy into the system and learned a lot from the older seniors that were there last year, and they were ready to step up and fill those shoes.
And we'll talk about their schedule in a little bit, but I think, just kind of previewing it, the one game that they probably circled last year that they felt like they could have at least played better in and had a better showing is that Mineral Ridge game where they got blown out of the water. I feel like they might be looking at that game. They might have that score posted in the locker room and think this year that's not going to happen to us again when we play Mineral Ridge.
Well, yeah, you got to look at that. And I mean, the score was a 45-0 victory too. And I mean, it was at Jackson Milton of all places too. So, I mean, you look at that and no, you can't be happy at all with how that turned out, because you felt like you could have played a lot better throughout that entire game. And it really was just in that second quarter where it was, it kind of just turned haywire. It seemed like for the Blue Jays, as they kind of were keeping it even keel that whole game around. It was scoreless for a long time, and then Mineral Ridge just started taking off, and then before you know it, it was over. And it was one of those games too, was it started happening, and then the snowball effect just happened, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was just a night where, it happens to a lot of teams, and every team I think experiences at least one game in sports where it was just like it's mentally draining after a while, and it's like you just don't want to be there. You want to get the game over with and you want to go home. But I mean, it sits with you, and it's been sitting with them for a year now, and they've been wanting to get back to Ridge. And I think this game being at Ridge too, I believe, is what's on their docket. They go to Mineral Ridge this year. It's going to be fun seeing this matchup again, because the Blue Jays should be ready for this matchup this time.
Perfect segue into their schedule. Break down what the Blue Jays have standing in front of them.
Well, right now, Jackson Milton, it looks like open is what it says for August 20th. I don't know. Did they find an opponent yet for that?
Not to my knowledge.
I believe they were looking for an opponent. They might have one. We'll have to stay tuned on that. But their first game is open. But then August 27th is at Newton Falls. September 3rd is home versus Wyndham. September 10th, home versus Western Reserve. 17th at Lowville. 24th at Sebring. October 1st at Mineral Ridge, 8th versus Waterloo at home, October 15th at Springfield, and October 22nd home versus McDonald. I mean, we talked about that Mineral Ridge game, October 1st too. It's a Week 7 game, and it's at Mineral Ridge. This is the rematch from last year that I guarantee you the Blue Jays have been wanting for a long time now.
Big closeout game at home too against McDonald, bringing them into Jackson Milton. I mean, that might be a make-or-break game for Jackson Milton, teetering on a playoff spot.
And it very well could be. I mean, by that time, it could be. We don't know where their schedule, obviously, and where their record's going to be. But yeah, with the teams that they have prior to, I mean, before that, you're looking at, you got to face Western Reserve, you got to face Lowellville, Newton Falls, Wyndham, Sebring, and then that first game, I believe, is still open. So it's going to be interesting to see where they stand, and they might have a few wins under their belt, quite a few too. I mean, you're looking at those first 5 games with the open one. Those first 5 games, Newton Falls, Wyndham, Western Reserve, Lowellville, Sebring, excuse me. Those are, you could come out 3-2. I could see them coming out 3-2, possibly 4-1. But at the same time, if games like that Mineral Ridge one happen where it snowballs, they can be 2-3, 1-4. That's the thing with this team. Nobody, like we said, nobody really knows what to expect. But I think that's the exciting part about this team, and that's why I'm excited to see what the Blue Jays have to offer.
With the second half of their schedule, they definitely don't want to have too deep of a hole to climb out of after 5 games.
No, you can't. You can't really afford to go into that slide because it goes right after Mineral Ridge. You go to Waterloo, or your home versus Waterloo, but you close out that season at Springfield, home versus McDonald, and those are 2 very tough games and 2 teams that are going to be looking to be competing for the top of the Scarlet Tier division, or Scarlet Tier, conference of the MVAC. But I think that those 2 games back to back at Springfield, home versus McDonald, those are going to be games too where playoff it might be on the line and you need to take one of them.
Well, that would be a daunting task if you said, hey, we got Springfield, McDonald, one is a must win. We have to do one or the other. I mean,
it makes for great football, and it makes for 2 weeks of football that I definitely would want to see.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the mental strain if McDonald and Springfield are locked into a playoff spot, and then all of a sudden Jackson Milton needs that game badly just to get into the playoffs.
And they could play spoiler in their own division.
Oh man, that's when it gets kind of murky a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how things wind down towards the end of the season and where all these teams are, because they're going to be beating up on each other. Majority of the schedule is filled up with conference play.
Last but certainly not least, let's make a trip down to Atwater and talk about the Waterloo Vikings a little bit and what they return and what they are bringing to the table in 2021.
Yeah, the Waterloo Vikings are a team that has a special place in my heart because I started really getting into the Waterloo program when I started doing the basketball season over there, and I really started learning more about the school culture and how everything has been over there. And I really love the fans and I love the community up there at Waterloo. They have great kids and they have a great community of support behind those kids, and you can't really say enough about them. In 2020, though, Waterloo ended the season 4-6. They were 0-6 in regular season. They did win 4 games after. So, I mean, really ended the season well. They averaged over 20 points a game of offense. They are returning 9 starters from that offense. And the guys that are going to be interesting to look at, I think Bobby Macon is going to be one of the running backs there. Mason Duncan, a wide receiver. Devin Curtis, another one of those. You got Austin Wise is going to be an offensive lineman that's going to be very fun to watch too, as he's an incredible blocker up front. You lose guys like Joe Thomas, not that one, but Joe Thomas, the quarterback for them. Joe Ward, a wide receiver, and Cody Stump, a running back for them. But those are the guys that you lose last year, but they're replacing Cody Stump with Bobby Macon, and Bobby Macon is going to be a guy I'm going to be interested to see what he can do this year, because I really think he's the type of guy. He has some great speed. He has some great vision ahead of him. He seems to find those open holes in the line and is able to take advantage of them. And when he gets to the outside of the run too, he's able to just have enough speed to beat those edges and beat those defensive backs or linebackers that try to come up and get him off of the edge. So I want to see what he can do with a full season under his belt, not having to share snaps with Cody Stump. I want to see what Macon can do. I believe he had 58 carries last year. Should be looking for a lot more this year on that Waterloo offense.
Yeah, and it's an offense that just wants to see more production. I don't think they care who it comes from. They just want to see more points go up on that scoreboard a little bit, take some pressure off a young defense that goes up against a lot of big offenses this year on their schedule. So I think they just want a little bit more production out of their offensive squad.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really the point where you got to look at if you're Waterloo and say that's where we need to improve on, because defensively, they're a solid football team. Yeah, of course, there's improvements to be made, but definitely solid and competed with a lot of teams defensively last year. It's just being able to get that extra score or finish that touchdown, turn those field goals into touchdowns and those punts into field goals, and just ending up with more points on the board than you did last year.
Backing your defense up when they make a big stop and continuing that momentum is also big, because then it gives the defense a reason to go back out there and put the same effort on that they did the last drive. If they go and they make a big stop or they force a fumble and then the offense comes and they go 3 and out, it kind of takes those sails, not just out of the offense, but it kind of takes the sails out of the defense too, because they feel like we just made this big play for our team and it didn't really do anything.
Yeah, and I mean, the defense though of this team is gonna be good, and I think even better than last year. So when you have this defense that's gonna be able to give you these stops, you need to give them just a little bit more support. You don't need to be blowing it out of the water. We're not saying Waterloo needs to be a Lowville or a Springfield on offense.
Blow it out of the water.
Yeah, but as long as Waterloo is scoring a little bit more efficiently this year, I think they're going to be a team that's going to get even more than 4 wins this year. And I think you're going to see more of a 6-win team of Waterloo. I think they have the potential to have a winning season if they can just get those offensive drives to end in touchdowns and field goals a little bit more.
Highlight that defense and some of the players that make it one of the successful units in the area.
Yeah, and like this defense is a team that allowed just over 27 per game, but they're returning 9 of their starters. A couple of Mason Duncan plays both ways on defense. So does Austin Wise, I believe. But I mean, other guys, Justin Fox, Spencer Shepard, and then a Mason Hacken are some great linebackers for them as well. Both Justin Fox and Spencer Shepard go up front. Mason Hacken, a linebacker, as well as Mason Duncan and Bobby Macon. So you got 3 very good linebackers, some good guys up front, some solid defensive backs as well. This is a team, too, that is going to have another year of experience under their belt. Not very many seniors on the team overall. And it's a team that's going to be younger, but, I mean, is going to be very excited, I think, going into the season. For everything they did defensively last season, they have a lot to hang their hat on and be proud of.
Yeah, I think so, too. And when you have a season like that, of course, you got to find ways to motivate your kids to keep doing what they're doing, even though the results overall, the team results, didn't really come to fruition. Their defense has to understand that they did their job last year.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And I mean, some of the guys that are two-way players on offense and defense can tell you that the defense was one of the strong suits for Waterloo, and they were able to stay competitive in a lot of those games, and they were able to keep the offense close. It's just being able to take that next step. So instead of you're losing by a touchdown or a field goal, you're winning by that. It's just being able to get that last score and being able to have that last score by the end of the day.
Let's talk about their schedule, who they have sitting in front of them and in the way of a successful season.
Yeah, looking at Waterloo's schedule this year, I mean, you open up a non-conference play at Newton Falls, you go to at Strasburg Franklin, and then home versus Malvern to start the non-conference games. And I mean, a couple of interesting matchups there. At Newton Falls is going to be interesting, and I think also home versus Malvern September 3rd is going to be interesting non-conference.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I don't know anything about Strasburg Franklin, so I can't even preview that game. We're gonna have to do our homework when we do a week 2 show about Strasburg Franklin and try to see what that matchup entails for Waterloo, because it's a mystery, and it might be a mystery right now. I mean, of course, when they're preparing, it won't be, but right now it might be a kind of a mystery to the coaching staff too.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, going into this season too for Waterloo, I mean, you open up with Newton Falls. You got the victory against them last year in your last game of the season, so you open up with them right off the gate. So I mean, you're riding high off the victory off of them. You meet them right off the bat again.
We're playing Newton Falls again.
Yeah. So I mean, they're looking at these first 3 games, and I think Waterloo scheduled these first 3 games thinking that they have a very realistic possibility of coming out 3-0.
That would be big heading into their tough conference schedule talk about their conference slate and how it lines up.
Starts out home versus Sebring, goes to September 17th at Western Reserve, September 24th home versus Lowville, October 1st at Springfield, October 8th at Jackson Milton, October 15th home versus McDonald, and October 22nd at Mineral Ridge. And I mean, looking at that schedule and where Waterloo looks at, I mean, we talked about that Sebring game being important too. I'm looking at really, if you want me to say the key games in this schedule, I'm looking at those first 4 weeks, honestly. I'm bunching them all. I'm cheating a little bit. I'm circling those first 4 weeks. And I'm telling you, whatever happens in those first 4 weeks is going to tell you what Waterloo does for the rest of the season, if they make the playoffs or not. Because I think those are the first 4 weeks where you're coming in, you have a team that's more experienced now. Everyone's even, everyone's 0-0. So you're all coming in with the same attitude. Nobody has a win or loss on their record. And you're coming into 4 games that are going to be very competitive, but 4 games that are very winnable too for Waterloo. And I think these are 4 matchups where Waterloo, if they're coming out looking strong, 3-1 record, or maybe even a 4-0 record, you're looking at a very solid chance that Waterloo makes the playoffs then.
Yeah, and just like Jackson Milton, I think the first 5 games, the first half of their schedule, going to be crucial because that back half is very tough, and you do not want to be digging yourself out of a hole in that back half of their schedule.
No, absolutely not. I mean, we already saw how it ends. I mean, last 4 games then are Springfield, Jackson Milton, McDonald, Mineral Ridge. And those are the 4 teams we're expecting to be atop of the Scarlet Tier division. So it's all about how you do in the front half of the schedule, because you know the back half, the work is cut out for you. But in their favor, in Waterloo's favor, they'll know what needs to be done facing the hard teams then, the tougher teams in this division.
I mean, if you're 4-1 after 5, then you look at that second half and think, well, with 16 teams, I might only have to win one more game to get into a playoff spot. 5 and 5 in that division might just get you into a 16 seed.
Yeah, and I mean, after Sebring, we go Western Reserve, and then goes Lowville, Springfield, Jacksonville, McDonald, Mineral Ridge. So you face a bunch of very good offensive teams to test this defense. But I mean, if you're hanging your hat on the coattails of the defense that you had last year, and you're hanging your hat on the coattails that it's going to be improved and be a huge improvement from what it was last year, an already good defense, you might be able to win a few of those games on the defense solely alone.
That would be a big step forward for the program if they were able to earn themselves a playoff spot with 5 wins, maybe 6.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be great for the Waterloo program and those Waterloo fans, because we know how much they love their sports and they love their kids, and that community is so involved with their kids in the sports up there. It would be huge if that Waterloo football program can make their playoff appearance this year.
I think one of the reasons why they're so strong community-wise, we talked about it with Newton Falls, they're kind of alone up there. They're the only show in town. There's no one that's really touching their community. So they get to go really full force with their football, with their entire sports department. You never go to a quiet Waterloo game. That's one of the things that we've learned really quick. Even in a 15% capacity crowd of basketball, they made noise, and they made a lot of noise. You know it. You called games there. I called games there. Waterloo gets loud really quick.
Yeah, and especially with the new bleachers that are going up for the football stadium, I'm so excited that Waterloo's getting all these features and renovations done. It's about time that they get this, because they've deserved it for a long time. That field and the school and those kids, they've deserved to have the bright lights and big bleachers of crowds watching them too, because that's what that school does deserve. And yeah, watching the basketball games, I never got the chance to see a football game up there, but I have seen plenty of both boys and girls basketball games at different times of the day. And I tell you what, whether it's an 11 o'clock start for a girls basketball game, or it was a 7 p.m. Friday night boys basketball game, there was a lot of Waterloo fans in the stands, and the stands will literally shake when exciting things happen. And it was definitely fun experience being in Waterloo for basketball last year.
Didn't you do a day where there was like 3? There was like girls games in the morning, and then there were boys game at night?
I believe so, yeah.
I mean,
They get loud too, and they're a great YSN school, and they really do appreciate everything that we do, and we love having them too. And I mean, we talk about them being the only show in town. I'm glad that I'm within at least driving distance. I seem to be the only one that's out there, but don't worry, because their voices were definitely heard, and I made sure I preached the Waterloo name to everyone on YSN and on Power Hour for months.
You gotta love long days in Atwater covering the Waterloo Vikings, and we both had them. We both called a handful of their basketball games over the fall. So love Waterloo. Love to close out our preview of the Scarlet Tier with them. And with that, we will take our final break of the day. Come back and do some house cleaning before we wrap this one up on ysnlive.com. Running Point brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, shop with confidence knowing we're ready to go the extra mile for you. With the largest selection of used vehicles in the Valley, backed by the Greenwood Advantage Warranty. Every one of our vehicles has undergone our own 126-point inspection, so it passes the most important inspection, yours. No other dealership has the extra inventory, gives you extra for your trade, and goes the extra mile for you. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
When Mother Nature starts flexing her muscles, make sure you're prepared for comfort. For over a decade, NDC Heating and Cooling has been sending their team of experienced, certified, and knowledgeable technicians to service the area. NDC services all makes and models and carries a wide selection of furnaces, air conditioners, and indoor air quality products. To schedule an appointment, call 330-457-2562. That's 330-457-2562. For all your residential and commercial heating and cooling needs in Columbiana or Mahoning counties, call NDC Heating and Cooling in New Waterford, Ohio, where our thermostat is always set on quality.
When looking for home design inspiration, don't just be inspired, be Baird inspired. Whether new or remodeling, Baird Brothers has the latest trends like shiplap to refresh your home. Go from inspiration to installation with our wide selection of in-stock American hardwoods. From the rustic charm of antique oak to the warmth of traditional cherry, Baird Brothers has what you need to make your home inspiring. Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
Welcome back to the Friday edition of Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. They go the extra mile for you. Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartell. And we got some scores to get you into. As we talked about Waterloo football, their golf team did good yesterday at the Windmill Classic. Luke Simons, who we're very familiar with on the basketball team, shot at 87. Led by Hughes, who shot at 86 for them. So their first match of the year was a successful one. They are back in action tonight as they host McDonald, and it's a player's choice shirt, which I'm sure all the golfers love when they get to choose what shirt they're going to wear for their golf meet. Another score: the Ursuline girls tennis team opened up their season with a win over JFK. We love to report some scores, as we got two of them live on Running Point to open the fall season. The first two live scores presented on this new era of Running Point, and plenty of more obviously to come as the season goes on. And another kind of sad note, Waterloo football, they had to cancel their middle school season because of lack of numbers. You hate to see it, but it's one of those things we talk about. Building a program, you got to have the numbers lower than high school.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk to Coach Seidel, and he's another one of those. The curse of trying to get and recruit kids in a small school is very hard, and trying to garner that interest at a young age, because that's when you have to get them. You have to get them young, so it is hard, and it is heartbreaking. But I mean, don't take that as a total shot in the gut, I would say, if you're Waterloo. And I mean, if you're Waterloo and you see that report, take a little bit of responsibility. Don't take full responsibility, but take a little bit of responsibility as parents too, and try to push your kids to sports a little bit more if you're trying to think of an activity to do. I mean, sports might not always be the best activity. I get that, but I mean, extracurriculars I think are very important for kids, especially at the high school level. And you got to start them in it, even if it's marching band, even if it's choir, if it's dance, anything. It's something you need to start them early. So push your kids to the extracurriculars. And if you got kids that might be interested in sports, or even if they're not, push them to it and have them try it and have them try it out.
Want to give a shout out to Fitch softball senior who graduated this year, Sydney Schaefer, for officially signing with Northwestern of Ohio College to continue her softball career. She was on Team Hartwig in the All-Star game. Loved having her as a part of my team. Loved watching her for the 4 years at Fitch and covering her. So congratulations to Sydney on signing with Northwestern of Ohio. And some things to watch tonight. Volleyball, indoor volleyball in the gold medal game for America, as we saw the beach volleyball team win gold last night. We dominate the world of volleyball in America. You know it. We want to thank the guest that we had on today, Matt Seidel, joining us for the first hour to preview the first half of the MVAC Scarlet Tier. Want to thank Mike Klockner, the head coach of the McDonald Blue Devils volleyball team, for taking the time to talk to us, and also Mackenzie Firth, the new head coach of the United volleyball team, taking the time out of her workday to give us some FaceTime on the show today. Monday, we have Dana Balish calling in from 21 WFMJ, the sports director, and then very exciting first time to have players on the show, as the newly appointed captains of the Fitch volleyball team are going to be joining us at 1:30. Jocelyn Jordan and Alyssa Leskovac will be on the show at 1:30. Don't miss that. But have a wonderful weekend. Power Hour is up next. This was Running Point on YSN, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Once again, have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back Monday, 12 to 3.